From a blind date came a sister who is a CEO. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 376, La Fight in 1982. Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan almost laughed out loud when they saw him like this. Fortunately, they managed to hold back their laughter, otherwise it would really embarrass Shannying. Come on, you guys order a few too, whatever you want. Shannying took the initiative and handed the menu to Lin Zhuangxuan and Su Weifeng. Lin Zhuangxuan didn't want to argue about this either, so she smiled and said, "Then we won't be polite." Shen Diansheng waved his hand and said, "You're welcome, you're Shanning's classmate. I have to give you this face." "Thank you, Mr. Shen, for your face." Lin Zhuangxuan chuckled and ordered 2 more desserts. Girls always like to eat these things. After the dishes were ordered, the waiter asked what kind of wine they wanted. Shen Diansheng said directly, "Let's drink red wine, it's more classy." "Do you have Lafite from 1982? The waiter nodded affirmatively and said, "Yes." "What? Do you have Lafite from 1982? Shen Diansheng actually just wanted to show off and show his knowledge. Even if it was a very good restaurant, it would not have this kind of wine. Although Lafite's red wine is produced every year and the quantity is not low, 1982 is a specific year. The quality of the wine in that year is the best, and it is definitely the best among red wines. But because the wine is good, everyone likes to drink it. After decades, the stock of this wine has long been getting smaller and smaller. Only in some auctions can you occasionally see 1 or 2 bottles, and they are all sold at sky-high prices. This kind of wine has become a collectible, not a consumer product. Yes, we just bought a bottle of 1982 Lafite at an auction a few days ago. The price is 110,000. It was originally intended as a treasure of the store, but since you are honored guests, we can still provide it." 110,000? Shannying suddenly cried out, "Just a bottle of red wine?" The waiter said politely, "Yes, this price is from the auction, but in our hotel, the price is 150,000. Do you want some?" 150,000. This time even Shen Diansheng stared. His family has some money, but it is okay to spend 10,000 or 8,000 yuan on a meal occasionally. But spending 150,000 yuan on a bottle of wine is really too extravagant for him, and it is not something he can afford. The waiter immediately said, "In fact, we still don't want to sell this bottle of wine. We have other years of Lafite here, and the taste is also very good. I suggest that you can change to another year." Although the waiter gave him a way out, Shen Diansheng looked embarrassed. If he changed to another year at this time, wouldn't it mean that he couldn't afford it? But to be honest, I feel it's not worth it. This is just Shanning's classmate. I spent so much money and didn't get any benefits. It was just a show off. The price was really high. Lin Zhuangxuan smiled and said, "It's okay, just order the 1982 wine. I've heard that this wine is delicious. I want to try it too." Shen Diansheng's face turned green, and Shannying was also a little stunned. "Zhuangxuan, this..." Shannying didn't know how to speak for a while. Lin Zhuangxuan smiled slightly and said, "I don't want to cheat you. I just want to try it, so just let us treat you." Shen Diansheng immediately raised his chin and said, "Are you afraid that I can't afford it? I have to treat you for this meal." "Humph, then let's order the 1982 Lafite. But I warn you, if this wine is fake, we will never forgive you." The waiter smiled slightly and said, "Please rest assured, our guests, this bottle of wine was bought from the Gaster Horse auction and has a certificate. If it is wrong, we are willing to compensate 10 times. Shen Diansheng's mouth twitched, and he directly shook off Shanning's hand that was pulling his arm, and said, "Then order it." After the waiter went out, Shen Diansheng snorted and said, "Drinking red wine is different from drinking white wine. It requires a taste. You have to know where the nobility of red wine lies." Lin Zhuangxuan turned her head to look at Su Weifeng, then looked at Shen Diansheng, and said with a smile, "Then where is the nobility of it?" Shen Diansheng talked endlessly. "The top winery in this red wine is the French Lafite winery. The grapes in this winery are of the best quality, and the wine brewed is also the best. Due to climate reasons, the quality of grapes varies from year to year. The climate was the best in 1982, and the quality of the grapes was also the best, so the Lafite in 1982 is the best red wine. These things can actually be easily searched on the internet. Lin Zhuangsun, who makes short videos, must know more about these things. However, watching Shendai Sheng use these things to show his cultivation here, it is actually very interesting, so he cooperates with him. Shannying smiled bitterly at this time, and she felt a little resentful in her heart. Although Shendai Sheng was going to marry her, he was not generous to her, and he never helped her family. But this kind of person who came out to show off is willing to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. I really don't know how much status she has in Shendai Sheng's heart. Soon the waiter brought a bottle of red wine. Lin Zhuangsun, Shendai Sheng, and Shannying all looked at the packaging of the red wine curiously. Lafite from 1982. This is basically heard of. Very few people have seen it, even Shendai Sheng. It was the first time to see it. Now he was full of curiosity. But Su Weifeng was sitting there casually, as if this thing did not interest him at all. Seeing Su Weifeng like this, Shendai Sheng quickly suppressed the urge to see it. Lin Zhuangsun said, "It's a red wine from 1982. It's almost 40 years old, and the packaging is still so good." Shendai Sheng frowned immediately and said, "Yes, how come the packaging is so good? You still say it's not fake wine?" The waiter hurriedly said, "Sir, Lafite's wine is expensive not because of the packaging, but because of the wine inside. The wine has been stored for nearly 40 years, and the previous packaging has long been damaged, so it was replaced with the latest Lafite wine packaging, but the wine inside is definitely not fake." Shendai Sheng's face was full of suspicion, but Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, "Open it, I'll see if it's real or fake." "Can you tell?" Shendai Sheng and Shannying looked at Su Weifeng in surprise. Su Weifeng barely said a word. The two of them actually didn't pay much attention to him. When he suddenly spoke, they were frightened. Shendai Sheng immediately sneered, "Don't be ridiculous. How could you tell?" Su Weifeng smiled slightly, took the red wine, and said, 2 years ago, I saw 2 bottles at a friend's place. This bottle looks familiar to me. It seems that he took it out for auction." Chapter 377. Insightful. Haha. I've seen people who can brag, but I've never seen anyone who can brag so much. Shannying, your classmate's boyfriend is really a boaster. Shendai Sheng was stunned for a moment, and then he laughed. "Then let me ask you, the combined salary of the two of you is less than 10,000 yuan. How can you make friends with such a rich friend? Don't tell me that we are also friends. Don't make a mistake, we are not friends. I just came to dinner with you for Shannying's sake." Su Weifeng smiled faintly and said, "To make friends, you don't necessarily have to be of equal status. Some of the rich people I know are quite generous. They won't refuse to make friends with me just because I don't have money." The implication was that Shendai Sheng had no generosity, but Shendai Sheng didn't hear it at all. Maybe people like them never care about what others think of them. Still saying, "You are just talking nonsense. Come on. Take a look at whether this wine is real or not, and give me a reason that will convince me." Su Weifeng took it and looked at it and said lightly, "There is a signature on this new packaging, which is the signature of the world-renowned wine-tasting master Derek. Oh, you may not know that he is a wine-tasting master, but he has another identity, the largest shareholder of Mirantan Oil Company." "What? Are you talking about that Derek?" Shendai Sheng suddenly cried out. People who like to pretend, what they like to do most is to understand the famous people and rich people in the world, so they also know about this Derek. Su Weifeng said, "Yes, this signature is his. If you don't believe it, you can go for an appraisal. Do you think it's possible for a world's top 100 richest man to sell a fake wine? He auctioned this wine because he lost a bet. You may not believe this restaurant, but you must believe Derek." Shendai Sheng said unconvinced, "Even if the signature on the outer packaging is Derek's, what if the wine inside is replaced?" Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, "Ordinary hotels certainly can't take out the 1982 Lafite. Even if they can, there is only one bottle with Derek's signature. I think the hotels that can take out this wine must be quite powerful, and they must know who Derek is. I don't believe they have the courage. Lin Zhuangxuan was also very curious at this time and said, even if Derek is rich, what can he do if he really pretends to be someone else? Su Weifeng smiled and said, Derek is a very cruel person. If there is really someone who dares to do something in his name, he will not kill people, but he will definitely do whatever it takes to make you bankrupt. He is very good at this. I believe that any hotel with strength will not risk bankruptcy for the benefit of hundreds of thousands of yuan. After a pause, Su Weifeng said, this signature should not be fake. In addition, this hotel is also a large chain hotel, and it dare not offend Derek for short-term benefits. Shen Diansheng opened his mouth and wanted to refute, but in the end he didn't say anything, because Su Weifeng's words made him unable to refute, and the most important thing was Derek's reputation, which made him feel a little creepy. Well, although this wine is expensive, it is worth it to drink wine signed by Derek himself, and get this signature. Open it. The waiter opened the wine, and poured it into the decanter. There was a slightly strong smell of wine in the room. But for Lin Zhuangxuan and Shan Ying, who had no special preference for wine, they didn't feel that this wine was special at all. Shan Ying looked at Su Weifeng at this time, and said to Lin Zhuangxuan, Zhuangxuan, what does your boyfriend do? He is so amazing that he even knows Derek. Lin Zhuangxuan blinked and said, don't listen to his bragging. He doesn't know Derek at all. He just happened to know about this matter, and showed it off. When Shen Diansheng heard what Lin Zhuangxuan said, it was really reasonable. He immediately started to pretend again. He first explained the matter of sobering up. Then when the wine was poured into the glass, he smelled the wine and shook the glass, showing all kinds of high-level wine tasting, showing his extraordinary knowledge, and how well educated he was. Lin Zhuangxuan also followed suit, but always felt that it was a bit too artificial. After taking a sip of the wine, he also didn't taste anything. At most, it seemed to be a little better than other red wines. This is like a non-drinker who takes a bottle of liquor. No matter if it is Maotao or Erguotao, it tastes very spicy and unpalatable. A 150,000 yuan bottle of liquor. I drank several thousand yuan in one sip, but I didn't taste anything special. Lin Zhuangxuan couldn't help but mutter. Su Weifeng chuckled and said, then just drink it as ordinary red wine. Don't treat it as Lafite or not. Lin Zhuangxuan laughed and took a big sip. He smacked his lips and said, it seems to taste better this way. Shen Diansheng's face turned black and he said, you are just like a cow chewing a peony when you drink it like this. What a waste. Shen Diansheng pretended to be arrogant for a while with the wine, and then pretended to be arrogant again with the food. He was so arrogant that he once again started to be arrogant and looked disdainful of interacting with Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan. Lin Zhuangxuan was more or less used to this guy's appearance, so he ignored him and chatted with Shan Ying while eating and drinking. Although Shan Ying also had a good chat with Lin Zhuangxuan, she still had to take care of Shen Diansheng from time to time, helping to pour wine and pick up food for him. Seeing Su Weifeng pouring wine and picking up food for Lin Zhuangxuan, she couldn't help but feel a little envious. At this time, Shan Ying's phone rang. As soon as she saw the phone, Shan Ying immediately said happily, it's my brother calling, I'll answer the phone first. Lin Zhuangxuan indicated that it was okay, and Shan Ying answered the phone. Xiaodong, why are you calling me at this time today? Sister, save me. Save me. A hoarse voice came from the phone, and Su Weifeng and the others heard it. What's wrong? What's wrong? What happened to you? Shan Ying immediately shouted anxiously. Sister, I've been caught. They want to kill me. Please save me quickly. What's going on? If you don't tell me, how can I save you? I had a girlfriend some time ago, but who knew she was actually the mistress of a gangster boss? Now the gangster has caught me and wants $1 million US. Otherwise they will kill me directly. Shan Ying hurriedly said, no, tell him, I will raise the money for you right away. As she spoke, Shan Ying cast her eyes on Shen Diansheng. Shen Diansheng glared and said coldly, I married you, not your brother. I don't care about his business. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel. Mundo fanfic novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 378. You guys go and do it. Sister, please save me. They said that if I don't get the money together in one day, they will kill me. They're real gangsters and can really kill people. There was another shouting voice on the phone. But there was a roar inside, and then it turned into the voice of a big man speaking English. Shanling suddenly didn't understand, and Su Weifeng said, "Press the speaker, I understand English." Shanling quickly pressed the speaker, and Su Weifeng said in English, "Don't hurt him. Asshole, if we don't get $1 million by this time tomorrow, we will throw this kid into the shredder. We will raise the money, but we have to know whether he really fell into your hands and what kind of organization you are. We are the Meiji Gang in Detroit. You can go and find out how powerful our organization is. Okay, then during the time we prepare the money, please don't hurt the hostages. We will take good care of him and won't let him lose a hair, but if it's 1 minute later, you will only receive a pile of his meat." After saying this, the other party hung up the phone. Su Weifeng translated what he just said to everyone. "Dian Sheng, please save my brother." Shanling grabbed Shen Dian Sheng's arm. Shen Dian Sheng stared and said, "Why save him? This is the trouble he caused. Besides, it's the US dollar rate. How can I afford it?" Shanling said anxiously, "Then let's raise money and give them 1 million. Then they won't kill my brother." Shen Dian Sheng waved his arm angrily and said, "1 million? That's US dollars. Do you think my family runs a bank? How valuable do you think you are?" Shanling's eyes were filled with tears and she said, "But if there is no money, my brother will be killed." Shen Dian Sheng said impatiently, "Kill him if you want. You don't have the ability, but you have to go abroad to study. You ask me for money every day. Do you really think I'm a charity?" Shanling burst into tears. She also knew that 1 million was a huge sum of money for Shen Dian Sheng's family and they definitely couldn't afford it. But Shen Dian Sheng was her only hope. She knelt down at once, grabbed Shen Dian Sheng's thigh, and cried and begged, "Dian Sheng, please, as long as you can save my brother, I will be willing to work for you like a slave in the future. Please, get out." Shen Dian Sheng kicked Shanling away and shouted, "Bitch, don't you know why I want to marry you? I'll give you 1 million at a time, and you should be moderate. Whether he lives or dies has nothing to do with me. If you don't know what's good for you, get out now, and our engagement is cancelled." Shanling was kicked and sat on the ground. Lin Zhuangxuan was so angry that she wanted to jump up. Su Weifeng quickly held her down. This was a matter between lovers. Whether it was a quarrel or a fight, it was a family matter. It was not so serious now. If outsiders got involved, it would likely intensify the conflict. Shanling sat on the ground, crying, "What should I do? I only have one brother. I can't watch him die." Lin Zhuangxuan suppressed his anger, but looked at Su Weifeng for help. Su Weifeng sighed and said, "Okay, I'll help you solve this problem." "Ah." Shanling stopped crying, got up quickly, and said excitedly, "Can you lend me 1 million? Shen Dian Sheng glared and said disdainfully, "What are you talking about in your sleep? 1 million. If he can come up with $1 million, I will eat the table." Su Weifeng glanced at Shen Dian Sheng indifferently and said, "Who said you have to pay to save people?" He took out his phone and dialed a number. "I have a friend who was caught by the Meiji gang led by Deet. Let them release him." "Oh, what's his name?" The latter sentence was said to Shanling. Shanling said quickly, "Shandong." Su Weifeng nodded and said, "Call Shandong. You can do whatever you want." After saying this, Su Weifeng hung up the phone. "Is that all?" Shen Dian Sheng looked at Su Weifeng as if he were an idiot. Su Weifeng did not answer Shen Dian Sheng, but smiled at Shanling and said, "It should be no problem. I believe you will receive the news soon." Shanling was speechless. Su Weifeng just said such a simple sentence, as if he was ordering the other party to do something. This was really hard to believe. Lin Zhuangxuan also had a smile on his face and said, "Shanling, don't worry. If Weifeng says there is nothing wrong, then there is nothing wrong." But Shanling couldn't believe it, but she didn't know how to question it. Shen Dian Sheng curled his lips in disdain and said, "Shanling, your classmates are really interesting. I have seen people who can brag, but I have never seen anyone who can brag so much. Do you think you are the president of the United States or the gang boss there? If you say this to the Meiji gang boss, I dare say that they will cut off the head of that stinky boy immediately. Lin Zhuangxuan had long disliked this guy. At this time, he glared and said, just because you can't do it doesn't mean that others can't do it. Don't think that you are the best in the world just because you have some money. There are many people who are much better than you. Shen Diansheng snorted and said, of course I admit this, but if this kid has this ability, then I will write my name Shen backwards. As soon as Shen Diansheng finished speaking, there was a knock on the door, and then a middle-aged man dressed as a manager came in with several waiters carrying dishes. Aren't our dishes all served? Shen Diansheng frowned. The manager smiled and said, this is a gift from our hotel. Then he came directly to Su Weifeng and said in a panicked tone, Mr. Su, I didn't come to see you until now. This is my mistake. Please forgive me. Su Weifeng smiled faintly and said, nothing, you should be busy with what you should do. I just came to have a meal with my friends. Thank you, Mr. Su. If you need anything, just call the waiter. The manager bowed respectfully and then walked out. That respectful attitude was absolutely not false. Mr. Su? Shen Diansheng's voice was a little dry. Lin Zhuangxuan chuckled and said, is this one of your shares? Su Weifeng shrugged helplessly and said, it should be. I seem to remember such a company. Seems to remember? Shen Diansheng's eyes almost popped out. How powerful is this? He didn't even know whether it was a company he had invested in. Chapter 379, one phone call and it's done. You, what do you do? Shen Diansheng gritted his teeth and asked in a hoarse voice. Lin Zhuangxuan chuckled and said, he is a shareholder of dozens of companies. He doesn't care about it. It's nothing. Shen Diansheng grinned and said, then how much of the shares does he own? Lin Zhuangxuan said lightly, not much, just about 20%. Shen Diansheng felt his heart beating wildly and said, then, are the market values of his companies large? Lin Zhuangxuan said again, it seems to be about 10 billion or 800 million. It's troublesome to calculate these broken accounts. I'm too lazy to calculate them. Shen Diansheng was so surprised that he almost fell off his chair. The person in front of him was a billionaire. Shan Ying's eyes lit up and she said, then, the phone call he made just now, was it true? Lin Zhuangxuan was talking to Shan Ying with a smile on his face, saying, of course, that's why I told you not to worry. Shan Ying nodded repeatedly and said, yes, I'm not worried, I'm not worried. Just then, her cell phone rang again, and it was her brother's number. Sister. Xianadang, how are you? Shan Ying stuttered nervously. They released me and gave me $1 million. What? Shan Ying screamed. What's going on? I'm so scared. Shan Ying immediately turned her eyes to Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng said calmly, it's nothing. It's just compensation for mental damage. Let him keep it. Shan Ying then said, okay, then take it and go back to school quickly and don't come out again. Sister, I know. Did my brother-in-law help me? No, it was my classmate who helped me. Sister, do you have such a great classmate? Shan Ying hurriedly said, don't talk about this. Go back to school quickly and call me when you get there. After hanging up the phone, Shan Ying immediately stood up, walked to the side of Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan, and bowed deeply. What are you doing? Lin Zhuangxuan quickly stood up and helped her up. Zhuangxuan, if it weren't for you this time, I really don't know what to do. Lin Zhuangxuan said, look at what you said. We are classmates. It's only right to help each other when we have difficulties. Shan Ying nodded repeatedly, holding Lin Zhuangxuan's hand, and kept sobbing. Lin Zhuangxuan said with a smile, okay, the matter has been resolved. Let's drink. This is Lafite from 1982. We can't waste it. The atmosphere became much better during the meal. Shen Diansheng no longer dared to act arrogant in front of Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan. Instead, he looked like he wanted to please them. For Shan Ying's sake, Lin Zhuangxuan and Su Weifeng did not ignore him, but it was just superficial. After the meal, Shen Diansheng rushed to pay the bill. He felt that his bottle of Lafite from 1982 was worth it, and wanted to show off. The waiter said politely, "Sir, the bill has been posted at the hotel. It's free." Shendai and Sheng had no chance to show off. Although Shendai and Sheng still wanted to have a deep talk with Su Weifeng, Shannying directly proposed to leave first, so he had to follow her. Thinking that he still had to rely on Shannying to maintain his relationship with Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangsun, his attitude towards Shannying also changed 180 degrees. Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangsun returned home. Lin Zhuangsun was still unhappy and said, "How could this Shannying find such a man? He has some money but not much, has a bad temper, and is not good to her. I really don't know what she is thinking." Su Weifeng smiled and said, "For many people, tens of millions are already a lot. Mr. Lin doesn't care about tens of millions anymore." Lin Zhuangsun chuckled and said, "It's all because of you. You have hundreds of millions at any time, as if I have them too. Haha, what's mine is yours." Su Weifeng patted his chest and said generously, "What's yours is mine." Lin Zhuangsun narrowed his eyes, suddenly stretched out his arms, hugged Su Weifeng's neck, and said, "Do you think I'm your woman?" Su Weifeng's smile froze, and he coughed lightly and said, "Aren't you my friend? You are my best friend. I'm never stingy with my friends." "Really?" Lin Zhuangsun raised his chin, with a look of disbelief. "Of course it's true." Su Weifeng felt a little guilty. He didn't care about money, but the attitude he showed just now was something he would only say if he treated the other person as his woman. HMPH. "Anyway, I'll remember what you said." The smile on Lin Zhuangsun's face became even stronger. The WeChat notification sound on the phone rang, and Su Weifeng hurriedly reminded Lin Zhuangsun. Lin Zhuangsun looked at Su Weifeng's eager look and deliberately hesitated for a while, until Su Weifeng couldn't hold it anymore. She let go, and picked up the phone. "Zhuangsun, I broke up with him." It was a voice message from Shannying. "Ah. What's wrong?" Lin Zhuangsun immediately smiled, but still asked with concern. "To be honest, I want to marry him just for his money, so that he can support my brother, to finish his studies abroad. This, I can understand." Lin Zhuangsun could only say this. "But you know, he actually doesn't like women. He likes men, and he married me to cover up his special orientation." Lin Zhuangsun suddenly cried out, "Oh my god. There are such people. For my brother, I endured it. He usually yelled at me and insulted me, and I endured it. But this time, he didn't have any intention of helping my brother, and I was heartbroken." Lin Zhuangsun immediately said, "That's a good thing. Anyway, your brother is fine now, and he doesn't have to worry about money in the future." Shannying said, "We can't take this money, and we dare not take it. We will return the money to you soon. My brother has learned his lesson this time, and has reflected on himself. In the future, he will definitely go out to work and earn money, and then I will work to help him. I think it should not be a big problem. Thank you so much." The two said a few more words before they finished chatting. Lin Zhuangsun shook her head gently and said, "Shannying is such a burden to his brother. He is a grown man, but he still needs his sister to support him. She almost sold him out." Su Weifeng said, "Yes, such a man should be taught a lesson, but Shannying is lucky not to have fallen into misery. If she had really married a man, it would have been a lifetime of sorrow." Lin Zhuangsun suddenly looked at Su Weifeng with a strange look. Su Weifeng felt a little scared when she looked at him. He moved back and said, "What's wrong with you? Don't look at me like that." Lin Zhuangsun moved closer to Su Weifeng, stared into his eyes, and said slowly, "Weifeng, you are not the same as Shendai and Sheng, are you?" Chapter 380 It's Fatal. "What?" Su Weifeng was stunned for a moment, but he immediately understood what Lin Zhuangsun meant. He glared at her, straightened his back, and said, "You are simply slandering me. I'm an upright man and I like women." "I don't think so." Lin Zhuangsun shook her head, and said with a flat mouth, "You said that I have lived with you for less than 20 days, more than 10 times, but you have never done what a man should do to me." Su Weifeng tapped Lin Zhuangsun's head gently and said, "I was responsible, okay? If I did something like this, I would not be able to be responsible for you in the future. Wouldn't that harm you?" Lin Zhuangsun said with a smile, "It sounds good, but I think you are hiding the fact that you are that kind of person. Then should we Being slandered by a woman like this, Su Weifeng subconsciously wanted to say the two words try at the end, but when the word came to his lips, he quickly swallowed them back. What do you want to do? Lin Zhuangxuan asked with narrowed eyes. Nothing. Su Weifeng got up and wanted to slip away. Hey, do you want to try it? Look at you. You don't even have the courage to try, and you still say you're not? You damn girl. Su Weifeng glared and went upstairs directly. If he continued to talk to this girl, he didn't know what he would talk about. Cowardly guy. Lin Zhuangxuan shouted from behind, and then fell on the sofa with a chuckle. Su Weifeng also knew that Lin Zhuangxuan was teasing him on purpose. If she really wanted to do something with him, she wouldn't have to wait until today. The two of them had too many opportunities. When he came to the gym, Su Weifeng did some simple physical training. More than an hour of training made him sweat profusely. Lin Zhuangxuan came in to check once, but didn't come to disturb him. In the past 1 or 2 months, Su Weifeng was completely in a state of relaxation and basically didn't do these physical training. But now there is a way to restore the true ki, and physical training must be restored. Although the true ki has a great effect and greatly improves strength. But the most important thing about strength is the function of the human body itself. Let's put it this way. The function itself is like the basic data of the game character. Ki is the ratio of various bonuses. If the basic data is low, the effect of the bonus is low, and if the basic data is high, the effect of the bonus is greater. So all of this cannot be relaxed. Su Weifeng now has to make his basic data, such as muscle strength, bone strength, and the inherent strength in the muscle, quickly return to the peak. After completing these trainings, Su Weifeng began to sit down and practice ki again. Yesterday at Menkeking's place, I got a very good recovery, but if I don't practice diligently, it will slowly decline. Practicing kung fu is like sailing against the current. If you don't advance, you will retreat. This practice lasted more than 2 hours. When Su Weifeng opened his eyes, it was already dark. After taking a shower, Su Weifeng went downstairs. He saw Lin Zhuangxuan sitting on the sofa, bored and looking at his phone. When he saw him, he jumped up immediately. You finally finished your practice. I'm so bored. Su Weifeng said with a smile. Were you this bored when you were alone before? No, when I was alone before, I watched videos, watched TV series, and played games. The whole day passed happily. But now that I'm at home with you, I always feel that you should be there to chat or something. If you don't care about me, I'll feel bored. Su Weifeng said with a smile. Okay, let's get some food first, and then I'll chat with you. Okay, let's go cook. Lin Zhuangxuan immediately pulled Su Weifeng into the kitchen. You don't seem to like going into the kitchen recently. What's wrong today? Su Weifeng asked with a smile. Lin Zhuangxuan chuckled and said, there are only 2 of us here now. It's such a big house. You do yours, and I do mine. That's such a boring thing. So it's more interesting for the 2 of us to do something together. I really don't understand these messed up theories. The 2 of them talked and laughed while cooking. Lin Zhuangxuan said she was here to help, but it would be better to say that she was here to cause trouble. She used vegetable leaves to tickle Su Weifeng, and then splashed water on Su Weifeng's face. This made cooking more fun. After dinner, the 2 played games for a while, and time passed quickly. At around 8 o'clock, Su Weifeng went to the gym again. In the past, Su Weifeng spent most of the day training, but now he does it twice a day. It seems a lot, but this kind of recovery training is actually much smaller than before. At almost 10 o'clock, Su Weifeng went straight back to his room, went to the bathroom, took a shower, and walked directly to the bed without wearing anything. Ding ding ding. The quilt suddenly opened by itself, revealing a woman's head with a naughty and excited smile on her face. Who else could it be but Lin Zhuangxuan? But the smile on Lin Zhuangxuan's face froze instantly, and then she screamed suddenly and pulled up the quilt to cover her head again. Su Weifeng turned around quickly, his face full of black lines, and rushed directly into the bathroom. He hurriedly found his pajamas and put them on. Once again, he returned to the bedside. Su Weifeng's mouth twitched, and he said, Lin Zhuangxuan, what are you doing in my room? Lin Zhuangxuan's head was still covered in the quilt. Have you put on your clothes? I put them on. Su Weifeng said unhappily. Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly opened the quilt, glared at Su Weifeng fiercely, and said, "You exhibitionist, you big bastard, you are not wearing any clothes. It's so abominable." Su Weifeng's face turned black, and he said, "Who told you to run into my room? I thought there was no one in the room. What's wrong with me not wearing any clothes?" Lin Zhuangxuan was speechless for a moment, but immediately snorted and said, "Then you and Qiao Yushan are not wearing clothes either?" "Of course I am. Huh, are you just peeping at me?" Su Weifeng also knew what happened just now. For a woman, it would be a disadvantage. If she admitted it, Lin Zhuangxuan would definitely catch this handle, and then she would suffer, so she took the initiative. "Huh, only a ghost would peek at you. What is there to see?" Lin Zhuangxuan glared at Su Weifeng fiercely. Su Weifeng snorted and said, "Why did you run into my room for no reason? A girl runs into another man's bed for no reason. Don't you know it's dangerous?" Lin Zhuangxuan raised her chin and said, "Come on, I'm here. Let me be dangerous for a try." As she said that, she directly lifted the quilt, deliberately twisted her body, posed in an alluring posture, and said, "Come on. Damn it. Damn it." Chapter 381. Is there not enough money at home? Su Weifeng's breathing suddenly became rapid, and his heart began to beat wildly. He took 2 deep breaths, smiled bitterly, and said, "Okay, I give in, my little aunt." Lin Zhuangxuan blinked her eyes, and her eyes were even more ambiguous, saying, "Don't be afraid, do whatever you want, I will definitely cooperate with you." Su Weifeng walked towards the bed step by step, and then slowly climbed onto the bed, his eyes fixed on Lin Zhuangxuan. Lin Zhuangxuan seemed very bold at first, but as Su Weifeng got closer and closer, she became a little weak, and her eyes were a little afraid to look Su Weifeng in the eye. "This guy, he's not going to do anything, is he? I'm just joking with you. If you're serious, what should I do?" Huh. Su Weifeng suddenly stretched out his hand. "Ah." Lin Zhuangxuan screamed immediately. But Su Weifeng's hand did not touch her, but directly grabbed the quilt and covered Lin Zhuangxuan. Huh. Lin Zhuangxuan exhaled, stuck out her tongue, and said, "You scared me to death." Su Weifeng snorted and said, "You little brat, are you going to make trouble with me? Can you make trouble about something like this?" Lin Zhuangxuan pouted and said angrily, "I'm just making trouble with you. I wouldn't do this with other men." Su Weifeng said, "Okay, go back to bed quickly." Lin Zhuangxuan grabbed the quilt and said, "No, I want to sleep here." Su Weifeng said with a smile, "Why are you sleeping here? I just like it. What's wrong?" Lin Zhuangxuan raised her chin proudly again, and said, "I used to sleep with you when I was at your house." Su Weifeng shook his head and said, "That's because we didn't have rooms before. Besides, you were here as Yushan at that time. Now there are only 2 of us at home. What's wrong with you sleeping with me?" Lin Zhuangxuan snorted and said, "You idiot, I want to help you recover from your injuries. This requires physical contact between us, and the cultivation of emotions. I'm simply sacrificing my life for you, and you are still nagging here. Will you let me help you in the future?" This. Su Weifeng was speechless for a moment. He really needed to recover from his injuries. Lin Zhuangxuan rolled his eyes and said, "If you say that you don't need my help anymore, I'll leave right away." Su Weifeng grinned, and finally sighed, saying, "But I feel really sorry for you." Lin Zhuangxuan gave Su Weifeng a look of contempt and said, "Forget it, we have discussed this matter many times. What's the point of you saying this over and over again? You are a grown man, but you are not as open-minded as me. Go to bed quickly." Su Weifeng felt a little ashamed all of a sudden, and quickly climbed onto the bed and said, "Okay, I was being pretentious." "That's right, why are you being so pretentious?" Lin Zhuangxuan rolled her eyes at him, then turned around, and snuggled into Su Weifeng's arms. Su Weifeng hugged Lin Zhuangxuan back, but felt a little embarrassed and unnatural. "Hey, why are you so stiff? Is there something wrong with you?" Lin Zhuangxuan raised his head, and teased Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng smiled awkwardly, and said, "To be honest, I really feel a little uncomfortable today." Lin Zhuangxuan looked relaxed and smiled. "What's there to be uncomfortable about? It's not like you haven't hugged me before." Su Weifeng thought for a while and said, "Before, you were my girlfriend, and it seemed nothing to hug you like this, but now you are Lin Zhuangxuan. This is yourself, and I hug you like this again, and I feel extremely guilty." Lin Zhuangxuan chuckled, blinked, and said, for you men, shouldn't this sense of guilt be transformed into excitement and stimulation? Su Weifeng coughed dryly and said, your sister and I are both fake, so where does this excitement and stimulation come from? That's true, so if you and my sister become real, will it be exciting if you hug me again? Lin Zhuangxuan said with a smirk on his face. Su Weifeng subconsciously fantasized about what Lin Zhuangxuan said, and suddenly his heart felt a little hot, but he immediately shook his head and said, Zhuangxuan, this kind of thing will not happen. I know, you can't take responsibility, and you can't really be with my sister, right? I've heard this kind of thing 800 times, and my calluses are all over it. Su Weifeng coughed dryly and said, okay, then let's not say it. That's right, what era is this? And you're still so old-fashioned. Just do things according to your heart. It doesn't matter if you love each other or not. When you are together, everyone is happy. Responsibility is too heavy. Su Weifeng frowned slightly and said, I can understand this idea, but I can't do it myself. When a soldier does things without even considering his responsibilities, he is not a qualified soldier. Looking at Su Weifeng's determined eyes, Lin Zhuangxuan pursed her lips and said, okay, then I'm just helping you recover from your injuries. Don't think too much, and let go of your heart. Otherwise, when will your injuries be healed and when can you make contributions to the country? Without waiting for Su Weifeng to speak, Lin Zhuangxuan said again, do you really think I want to rely on you? You really think too much. It's not like this young lady has no one pursuing her, and it's not like no one wants her. If you let go, she will be gone in a minute. Haha, okay. Su Weifeng chuckled, and the atmosphere between the two of them relaxed. Also, you have to be committed yourself. If you are so awkward, how can you have true feelings, and how can you enter the state of recovering from injuries? Lin Zhuangxuan knew very well how Su Weifeng was recovering from his injuries, and he hit the most important issue at once. Su Weifeng nodded repeatedly and said, that's the thing, but today we seem to be too deliberate, so I really can't get too involved. Lin Zhuangxuan said, I know that too, but there must be a process of adaptation. My sister won't be here often in the future, and I'll be the only one who can help you. You have to make good use of it. Don't let me be by your side one day and you won't even have the chance to recover. Humph, don't think that menkecking will always give you such an opportunity. Su Weifeng was immediately embarrassed. Qiao Yushan didn't know the inside story, but Lin Zhuangxuan knew it very well, and knew that Su Weifeng was definitely in love with menkecking at that time. There is something ready at home, but you don't make good use of it and cherish it, and you have to go out to hunt for food. I despise you. Lin Zhuangxuan's words made Su Weifeng ashamed and excited. Thinking about it, it was indeed the case. Now it is the dream of countless men. Chapter 382 Greedy. But tonight, Su Weifeng still did not enter that state. This is because Su Weifeng has not really let go of his feelings, so he cannot produce the prerequisites for the state. Another point Su Weifeng seems to have roughly guessed is that this feeling will not be produced continuously. It should be produced after a digestion period, and then it will be produced again after a period of time. This feeling and state just occurred with menkecking, and it should not appear with Lin Zhuangxuan for the time being. Sleeping together tonight, and going to work together in the morning. If someone who doesn't know sees them, these two people are a completely normal couple. There is an outdoor shooting task today, and Lin Zhuangxuan quickly left the company with a group of people. Su Weifeng and were dealing with other things in the company. Suddenly there was a noise outside. I want to find my brother-in-law. Why are you stopping me? This voice seemed to have been heard before, but Su Weifeng didn't have any impression, and the direction of the voice was coming from this side. No, you can't make trouble here. How can you let me work here in the future? This voice was from Sun Yumeng. Then Su Weifeng immediately thought of who the man's voice belonged to. It should be Sun Yumeng's half-brother. Su Weifeng stood up and walked out, and saw Sun Yumeng holding her brother, and there was also Sun Yumeng's stepmother Wang Yanli, and several colleagues in the company. They could only watch, and couldn't get a word in. Brother-in-law, brother-in-law. Sun Yumeng's brother shouted excitedly, as soon as he saw Su Weifeng. The colleagues in the company immediately cast strange eyes on Su Weifeng, and then quickly slipped away. They had been guessing who the brother-in-law Sun Yumeng's brother was talking about was, but now they found out that it was Su Weifeng. Doesn't that mean that Sun Yumeng is Su Weifeng's underground lover? This involves the boss's privacy. They actually saw and heard it. They were all shocked. If the boss wanted to keep them silent, he could even fire them directly. Su Weifeng didn't care about these things, walked over and said, "Let's talk in my office." After entering Su Weifeng's office, Sun Yumeng's stepmother Wang Yanli and her brother Sun Yudong looked around at everything in the office with eager eyes. Su Weifeng said, "Sit down, Yumeng. What's wrong?" Sun Yumeng's face was flushed, and her eyes were watery. She looked like she was about to cry. She opened her mouth and was about to speak. Wang Yanli immediately put on a smile and said, "Son-in-law, this is the case. We are a family, so let's not talk nonsense. Our Xiaodong has nothing to do at home, and there is no development in the countryside. It happens that you have opened such a big company, so let Xiaodong work here." Su Weifeng looked at Sun Yudong who was sitting on the sofa and said, "It's not a big deal." Sun Yumeng immediately said anxiously, No, he doesn't know anything. What can he do here?" Wang Yanli hurriedly said, "Our Xiaodong is still very capable, but he just didn't like to work before. Besides, this is your son-in-law's company. It's not difficult to arrange some work for Xiaodong." Sun Yumeng said anxiously, "But he has to be able to do something. We are a video company. He can either act, or be able to take pictures, or be able to write scripts or something." Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, "Yumeng, don't be excited. You have done so much for the company. It's not a big deal to arrange someone to join the company." Wang Yanli immediately rushed to say, yes, the son-in-law is still sensible. What kind of job can you arrange for Xiaodong? Su Weifeng looked at Sun Yudong and said, "What can you do?" Sun Yudong tilted his head and thought for a while, and said, "I'm pretty good at playing games." Su Weifeng said, "Good at playing games? That's fine. Our company really doesn't have a game anchor. We can give it a try." Sun Yumeng was stunned for a moment. It seemed that this could really be tried, and she was inexplicably grateful to Su Weifeng. Wang Yanli was immediately overjoyed and said, not bad. The son-in-law is still able to find a way. How much can you make this month?" Su Weifeng said, 3,000 a month at the beginning, but as the popularity increases, the salary will increase. "No, only 3,000. Sun Yudong refused directly. Sun Yumeng hurriedly said, "You just came to the company, and we don't know what your abilities are. The salary you are given during the probation period is not low." Sun Yudong curled his lips and said, 3,000 yuan is not enough for me to recharge my game account, so I won't do it. Wang Yanli immediately said with a smile, "Son-in-law, this is our family's business. You say how much to pay, and that's it. He is your brother-in-law, not someone else. Just give him more." Su Weifeng frowned slightly. Sun Yudong then said, "Mom, that's not what you told me. You said that, when I come here, you will arrange a leadership position for me. I don't want to be a soldier." "What?" Sun Yumeng screamed in surprise, and said, "You still want to be a leader? Are you crazy?" Sun Yudong said, as if it was a matter of course, "Why would I be crazy? My classmate went to work for his brother-in-law, and was directly given a department manager. You let me come here, and let me be a soldier. How can I have face in front of my classmates in the future?" Sun Yumeng's mouth twitched, and said, "This is absolutely impossible. You should go back now, and stop making trouble here." Wang Yanli said quickly, "Son-in-law, I think what Xiaodong said makes sense. Although he has never worked before, no one starts working when they are born. There must be a first time. You have such a big company, and you don't have to rely on yourself to manage it. You still need other people to help. I'll let Xiaodong help you, which can also reduce your burden. This is your family member, at least you can feel at ease, right? If he is not capable enough, you can take him with you, then he will learn it." Sun Yumeng said angrily, "Mr. Su can let Xiaodong stay, which is already a violation of the company's employment system. You still want Xiaodong to be a leader, which is absolutely impossible. If he wants to stay here, he should come to practice being an anchor, or go back." It was the first time that Su Weifeng saw Sun Yumeng speak so firmly. This little girl has been trained well during this period. The silly and cute look in the past is now less and less, and her face is more confident. But she is still so well behaved and lovely, which has never changed. Chapter 383. Let's get rid of it first. Wang Yanli frowned and said, Yumeng, I know I treated you badly in the past, and you have some opinions about me. It's reasonable for you to treat me in a certain way. But Xiaodong, even if he is not a mother, he is still a father and your brother. You can't not help him. Sun Yumeng said angrily, it's not a question of whether to help or not, but a question of helping has to have a bottom line. Besides, I'm just a small screenwriter in the company, not a leader. He wants to be a leader. Isn't this ridiculous? Sun Yumeng has been writing scripts recently. As she has written more characters, her thinking and logic are becoming clearer. Wang Yanli frowned and said, you are a couple. It doesn't matter what position you hold here. After all, the money you earn is yours. But your brother is different. He has to make money and get married in the future. You know, to get married now, you have to buy a house and a car, and the betrothal gift is not less. It must be at least 1 million or 800,000. You let him be an anchor and make so little money a month. When can he make money and get married? Do you want your Sun family to be extinct? Sun Yumeng immediately said, didn't I leave you 500,000 last time? Isn't that enough for him to get married? Wang Yanli said, now everyone in the village knows that you married a good family. Our family's status is different. Others introduce you to very good girls who are also pretty. The requirements are also high. 500,000 is not enough. Sun Yumeng bit her lip and said, then he can earn it with his own ability. Wang Yanli clapped her hands and said, this is just to let him make money. If he can make money and become a leader, he will definitely find a better brother-in-law for you. Our Sun family will also be blessed. Su Weifeng said at this time, it is definitely not possible to be a leader for the time being. In our company, except for me and Mr. Lin, there are no other specific leadership positions. Wang Yanli and Sun Yumeng can talk freely, but she is still a little scared when facing Su Weifeng. At this time, she said with a bitter face, son-in-law, you have to think of a way. Su Weifeng tapped the table with his fingers and said, just come here to be a game anchor first. Let me see what you are capable of. Wang Yanli cast her eyes on Sun Yudong. Sun Yudong curled his lips and said, the salary can't be so low. At least it has to be 20,000 yuan a month, otherwise I won't do it. Sun Yumeng's eyes widened and pointed at her brother. She was so angry that she didn't know what to say. Su Weifeng's face suddenly darkened, and he said, then don't do it. Our company can't afford to support a boss like you. Sun Yumeng felt relieved at this time. She finally found a job she liked, with such a good working environment and a boss who valued her work so much. If her brother came, she would definitely not be able to work here with peace of mind. She was not selfish, nor did she not want to help her family, but she couldn't afford this kind of help. Wang Yanli hurriedly said, uncle-in-law, don't be angry. Xiaodong is just young and likes to talk nonsense. Su Weifeng said calmly, let's just settle this. I will definitely not let him work in the company. Wang Yanli did not seem to be too disappointed. She coughed lightly and said, this matter may have made uncle embarrassed. How about this? Su Weifeng said calmly, you say. Xiaodong is your brother-in-law. His marriage is also a major event in his life. As a brother-in-law, you have to help him. See if you can. Wang Yanli rubbed her hands and said, do you think you can support him? You want money? Su Weifeng's tone was still very calm. Sun Yumeng was angry all of a sudden and said, are you done yet? You took 500,000 yuan that time, and now you want money. Wang Yanli's face was thick to a certain extent. At this time, she smiled and said, this is for Xiaodong's marriage, not for money. Su Weifeng looked at Wang Yanli and then at Sun Yudong. The eyes of the two were immediately full of expectations. Sun Yumeng hurriedly said, Boss Su, this won't work. This won't work. Su Weifeng said directly, okay, then I'll give you another 500,000 yuan. This is the last time. There won't be a next time. Wang Yanli immediately said excitedly, no, as long as Xiaodong gets married, we won't bother you anymore. This is my bank card, you can just transfer it here. Then she looked at Su Weifeng expectantly, clearly waiting for Su Weifeng to transfer the money immediately. Boss Su, this Sun Yumeng saw Su Weifeng really pick up the phone and immediately took a step forward and came to Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, "Let's do it this way, just consider it as a gift for your brother's wedding." Su Weifeng transferred 500,000 yuan, and Wang Yanli and Sun Yudong left happily immediately. "Boss Su, you shouldn't give them money." Sun Yumeng looked at Su Weifeng with a bitter face. Su Weifeng shook his head and said helplessly, "They are making trouble here, and I can't just drive them out. It's embarrassing for you. Just give them some money and send them away." Sun Yumeng stamped her feet, sighed, and said helplessly, "Well, I owe another 500,000 yuan, and I can't pay it back in this life." Su Weifeng chuckled and said, "What are you paying back? The last time we went to the province, you helped me make so much money. What is this 500,000 yuan?" But, Su Weifeng patted her shoulder and said, "There is no but. You are a big screenwriter in our company. I still expect you to write better scripts in the future. This little money will tie you, a future big screenwriter, to the company. I will make a lot of money." Sun Yumeng's eyes were a little red, and she clenched her fists and said, "Boss Su, I will follow you all my life." "Follow me?" Su Weifeng asked back with a smile. "Ah, Boss Su, what are you thinking about? I said I will work with you." Sun Yumeng's face turned red all of a sudden. Su Weifeng burst into laughter. He didn't mean to flirt with Sun Yumeng frivolously. He just said that to tease her, because he saw that she was troubled by this matter. After Sun Yumeng walked out of Su Weifeng's room, she returned to her position and continued to work. Zheng Qingyu, a girl who usually had a good relationship with Sun Yumeng, came over, looking as if she wanted to say something but hesitated. "What's wrong?" Sun Yumeng looked at her in confusion. "Yumeng, we will not talk nonsense about what we saw just now, and we will not tell President Lin." "What do you mean by not talking nonsense?" "Ah." Sun Yumeng's face suddenly changed, and she was so frightened that she couldn't speak. Chapter 384 Little Lover. It's broken. It's broken. What should I do? What should I do? Sun Yumeng was almost incoherent. Zheng Qingyu smiled bitterly and said, "You are too careless. You and Mr. Su should keep a low profile. How can you let your family members come to make trouble? I didn't ask them to come." "Ah, no, there is nothing wrong between me and Mr. Su. Don't say anything nonsense." Sun Yumeng became more and more anxious. Zheng Qingyu said a little dissatisfiedly, "Yumeng, we have a good relationship at ordinary times. I can understand that you didn't tell me about your relationship with Mr. Su, but now your family members are here, calling you brother-in-law. Can you still keep it secret? It's really not like that." Sun Yumeng was about to cry. "Alas, I feel that this matter is really hard to hide. I will definitely not tell you, but several people saw it just now. They may tell others. Who doesn't want to please Mr. Lin? If Mr. Lin knows about this, then you." Alas. Sun Yumeng sat there blankly, and her brain had a short circuit. Zheng Qingyu gently bumped Sun Yumeng with his shoulder and said, "Did you get together with Mr. Su on a business trip last time?" "Yes." Sun Yumeng just answered unconsciously, but immediately came to her senses and said anxiously, "How could that be? There is nothing going on between us." "Well, if you say there is nothing, then there is nothing." Zheng Qingyu looked helpless and said, "Then what you need to do now is to go to Mr. Su to discuss how to suppress this matter. It's best to make those people shut up, otherwise Mr. Su will definitely not be able to protect you." Sun Yumeng jumped up and ran directly to Su Weifeng's office. "What's wrong?" Seeing Sun Yumeng's panic expression, Su Weifeng was startled and quickly pulled her to sit on the sofa, patted her back, and said softly, "If you have anything to say, please speak slowly." Mr. Su, I hurt you." Sun Yumeng's tears flowed out all of a sudden. "Hurt me? How could you hurt me?" Su Weifeng was completely puzzled. "They came here just now, and everyone saw it. They all thought that I was with you. What if General Manager Lin misunderstood?" Su Weifeng chuckled and said, "Others don't know, but you don't know. General Manager Lin is not my real girlfriend. Her sister is my girlfriend. Besides, this matter is nothing. Last time I went to your house, I handled things as your boyfriend, and she knew it." "Ah, you really won't let General Manager Lin misunderstand?" Sun Yumeng wiped her eyes and looked at Su Weifeng expectantly. Su Weifeng smiled and said, of course not. Even if General Manager Lin doesn't believe me, how can he not believe you? This. Sun Yumeng relaxed a little, but it was obvious that she was still not so relieved. Su Weifeng smiled and said, okay, I'll call General Manager Lin, you just listen here. After saying that, Su Weifeng called Lin Zhuangxun. Lin Zhuangxun happened to be resting at this time. After listening, he smiled and said, let Yumeng rest assured. I know about this, and won't think too much about it. The phone was on speakerphone, and Sun Yumeng immediately said with gratitude, General Manager Lin, thank you, thank you. Haha, others don't believe it, but how can I not believe you? In addition, you have to help me keep an eye on your General Manager Su, so that he won't run away with Xu Lingling across the street again. Sun Yumeng hurriedly said, okay, I'll watch him. Su Weifeng puffed and said, are you okay? This is to arrange a little spy around me? Lin Zhuangxuan laughed and said, I won't talk to you anymore. I have to work quickly here. After hanging up the phone, Su Weifeng smiled and said, are you relieved now? Sun Yumeng wiped her tears and said, I feel relieved. General Manager Lin is so nice. Su Weifeng chuckled and said, then go and do what you should do. Sun Yumeng stood up, smiled embarrassedly and said, sorry to trouble you, Mr. Su. Go ahead. Su Weifeng waved his hand. Sun Yumeng walked to the door, but suddenly turned around, bit her lip, and said, but what if my colleagues spread rumors? Su Weifeng said indifferently, let them say whatever they want. We can't stop them from saying it, nor can we stop them from suspecting. At this point, Su Weifeng knocked on the table lightly, and said, it seems that it won't work. I don't care, but you, a little girl, if it gets out that you are my lover, your reputation will be ruined. Sun Yumeng hurriedly said, I'm fine, as long as you, President Su, are fine. Anyway, I don't want to fall in love now. Su Weifeng really couldn't think of any good solution, and said, then let's do it this way first. You don't have to care about what others say. After a long time, everyone will forget about it. Sun Yumeng returned to her seat. Zheng Qinghai came over again, and asked in a low voice, what did President Su say? Sun Yumeng already had a smile on her face, and said, we have already made it clear to President Lin. Ah. President Lin believed it? Zheng Qinghai asked in surprise. Sun Yumeng said confidently, yes, President Lin still believes in me. Zheng Qinghai was a little stunned and said, your family members came to his door, and President Lin still believed it? You just like to think about these gossips. The thing is, Sun Yumeng told her story about Su Weifeng going to her house to help her. After listening to it, Zheng Qinghai also felt very interesting and said, so that's how it is. However, I believe what you said, but others will definitely not believe it. They would rather see that you have some relationship with General Manager Su, which is more in line with their expectations. Sun Yumeng smiled bitterly and said, General Manager Su also thought of it, but he said that whoever wants to say it can let them say it. We are innocent. Zheng Qinghai said cautiously, did General Manager Su say to keep it secret? Sun Yumeng shrugged helplessly and said, no. Then those of us who saw it will not be fired, right? You don't think too much. General Manager Su is not such a stingy person. Besides, General Manager Su and I are not really in trouble. If General Manager Su fires you, doesn't that prove that we are in trouble? Zheng Qinghai nodded repeatedly and said, what you said really makes sense. Office romance. This kind of gossip is the most popular topic in any company. So this matter did spread quickly, and almost everyone in the company knew about it. Everyone naturally believed that Sun Yumeng was Su Weifeng's lover. People have preconceived ideas, and when they all believe this, no one would believe it, even if they produce the best evidence. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 385. Zhao Xiaoshu is sick. Sun Yumeng soon discovered that everyone looked at her differently, and everyone spoke to her in a different manner. In fact, everyone had previously speculated that Sun Yumeng had a relationship with Su Weifeng, and everyone would be more cautious in their attitude towards Sun Yumeng. Now that this relationship has been confirmed, at least they think it has been confirmed. In everyone's mind, Sun Yumeng's position in the company is completely different. As long as Lin Zhuangxuan doesn't drive Sun Yumeng away, then Sun Yumeng is just like the hostess. Everyone is working, so naturally they dare not get involved in this kind of triangle relationship, let alone offend Sun Yumeng. Many people are in awe of Sun Yumeng, and many people envy her. After all, Su Weifeng, the boss, is definitely an ideal tall, rich and handsome man in the hearts of the girls in the company. But among these people, there is no hostility towards Sun Yumeng. First, there is no special work competition. There are only a few people who write scripts, and everyone speaks with their own skills. Sun Yumeng is also humble enough, so there is no need for the other scriptwriters to be hostile. Secondly, Sun Yumeng's usual behavior is indeed very pleasing to everyone. She is always polite when talking to anyone, and she always has a smile on her face. If anyone asks her for help, she will help seriously, and with all her strength. So many people are even worried that the matter between Sun Yumeng and Su Weifeng will have a bad result in the end. Lin Zhuangxuan returned to the company at around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and soon came to Su Weifeng's office. Okay, you even have a brother-in-law. Sitting on the sofa, Lin Zhuangxuan crossed his legs, and looked at Su Weifeng with a teasing look. Su Weifeng chuckled and said, I don't want such a brother-in-law. It's really tragic that Yumeng has such a stepmother and brother. What's wrong? Lin Zhuangxuan only knew that Sun Yumeng's stepmother and brother had come, and didn't know the details. Su Weifeng told the specific process again. Oh my god, these two are so shameless. They are simply a little greedy. I don't think it's a good thing for you to give away the 500,000 yuan. I'm afraid they will come to you for money in the future. Su Weifeng sighed and said, at that time, we could only send them away. We have to find a way to solve this problem once and for all. It doesn't matter if we give them some money. Yumeng is a very important person in our company, but people like this will definitely not be satisfied after taking advantage of her once and for all. Su Weifeng narrowed his eyes and said, this time we can give face to Yumeng, but if they continue to do so in the future, we won't indulge them. Lin Zhuangxuan nodded and said, that's indeed how it should be. People are lazy and just want to take advantage of others. It's really annoying. It's such a sad thing that such a good girl like Yumeng was born in such a family. Call Yumeng over, and I will comfort her. She must have a great psychological burden. After Sun Yumeng came over, Lin Zhuangxuan also comforted her, and didn't say too much, so as not to put pressure on Sun Yumeng. Lin Zhuangxuan's words in person were much more useful than a phone call. Sun Yumeng's last worry was also eliminated, and she was extremely grateful. When she returned to work, she wanted to make a huge contribution to the company in order to repay Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan for their kindness. Tonight, Lin Zhuangxuan was going to attend a dinner party, and Su Weifeng did not go with her. Daily exercise should not be interrupted if it can be continued. After going home and eating a little, he started exercising. At that time, I just wanted to exercise casually at home, so there were only treadmills and 2 barbells. The intensity of this kind of training was too low. In a few days, Su Weifeng considered going to the gym to exercise systematically. After all, there were enough equipment there. After exercising, Su Weifeng had just taken a shower when his cell phone rang. It was Zhao Xiaoshu calling. Su Weifeng answered it casually, but Zhao Xiaoshu did not speak. Xiaoshu, what's wrong? Su Weifeng frowned. This time, Su Weifeng could faintly hear the sound of breathing, and the breathing was very heavy. Xiaoshu, are you sick? Su Weifeng judged the situation from the other party's breathing. I feel so uncomfortable. Zhao Xiaoshu's voice was intermittent. If Su Weifeng hadn't listened carefully, he would hardly hear her voice. Su Weifeng hurriedly said, where are you? I'll go there right away. Well, send me the address on WeChat. More than half an hour later, Su Weifeng had arrived at where Zhao Xiaoshu lived. There was no response when he knocked on the door, which made Su Weifeng quite worried. He had to do a little trick himself and unlock the door directly. This is a small 1-bedroom house. As soon as you enter the door, you will see the bedroom. Next to it is a bathroom and a small kitchen. Zhao Xiaoshu is lying on the bed with a thick quilt wrapped around her. She didn't react at all to Su Weifeng coming in. Su Weifeng went over and touched her forehead. Her forehead was very hot and her face was very red. These were obvious symptoms of a fever. Zhao Xiaoshu opened her eyes and opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Why do you have such a high fever? Su Weifeng frowned. Cold. Zhao Xiaoshu finally made a sound. Su Weifeng nodded and said, I know, don't be afraid, I'm here. Su Weifeng checked and found that Zhao Xiaoshu should not have any other symptoms, just a common cold and fever. In this case, sending her to the hospital for infusion and taking antipyretics at home will generally not cause any major problems. He did not find any medicine at Zhao Xiaoshu's home, so Su Weifeng went downstairs to buy some medicine, poured some water, and came over to help Zhao Xiaoshu get up to take the medicine. But when he put his hand under her neck, he found her skin was burning hot, and it seemed that she was not wearing any clothes. After helping her sit up, the quilt on Zhao Xiaoshu slipped down a little, and Su Weifeng actually found that she was not wearing any clothes. This made Su Weifeng speechless. If he did not know Zhao Xiaoshu's character and could see that Zhao Xiaoshu was really sick, he would have considered that she was deliberately seducing him. Even though she was a little confused due to her illness, Zhao Xiaoshu still felt that she had escaped because of her girl's instinct. She raised her hands weakly, trying to pull up the quilt to block the light. Su Weifeng quickly pulled up the quilt for her and said, take the medicine first. Zhao Xiaoshu opened her mouth and swallowed the medicine, and Su Weifeng put her down again. Zhao Xiaoshu's face was redder than before. Her eyelashes fluttered twice, and she didn't dare to open her eyes to look at Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng quickly apologized. I didn't expect you to be naked. I'm really sorry for what happened just now. However, as soon as he said this, Su Weifeng clearly felt that Zhao Xiaoshu was even more embarrassed. Chapter 386 Taking care of Zhao Xiaoshu. Zhao Xiaoshu's fever was really serious. Even if she took the antipyretic medicine, the effect would not be so fast. However, if she had a fever for a while longer, it might have some bad effects on her. Xiaoshu, I'm going to do some physical cooling for you now. Don't mind. HMM. Zhao Xiaoshu responded softly. Su Weifeng had just bought alcohol and cotton wool. He dipped the cotton wool in alcohol and rubbed it on Zhao Xiaoshu's palms a few times. The alcohol evaporated and took away some of the heat from Zhao Xiaoshu's palms, which immediately made her feel refreshed, and her eyes opened. Su Weifeng immediately said, I'm going to put some alcohol on the soles of your feet and armpits, so that the effect will be better. The soles of the feet were okay, but the armpits. For girls, although they were not particularly private places, Zhao Xiaoshu was still a little embarrassed to let a man touch them, but she nodded softly. Su Weifeng came to the end of the bed, lifted the quilt a little, and revealed her little feet. Zhao Xiaoshu's feet are also very small, probably only size 36 when she wears shoes, and her feet are also very beautiful, even compared to Lin Zhuangxun, they are not much different. Sweat. Why am I comparing this at this time? Su Weifeng sweated in his heart, feeling that he is now really like what Lin Zhuangxun said, a foot control. Seeing women's feet, he always subconsciously compares and evaluates them. Using cotton wool to wipe Zhao Xiaoshu's soles, Zhao Xiaoshu subconsciously retracted her feet. Su Weifeng had to hold her ankles with one hand, so that her feet would not run away. After wiping her soles, then the last armpits. This place is really a bit embarrassing. The most important thing is that Zhao Xiaoshu is not wearing clothes. If she raises her arms, the quilt has to be pulled down a little. It is conceivable that some parts will be exposed a little. Zhao Xiaoshu closed her eyes and turned her head to the side, not daring to look at Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng couldn't help but feel hot and confused. He had been with Lin Zhuangxun and Qiao Yushan for so long, but he had never taken the initiative to touch them like this. Zhao Xiaoshu was a beauty. Because of the fever, her skin was a charming red, which added a special temptation. Finally, this matter was done, and Su Weifeng's head was faintly sweating. He quickly pulled Zhao Xiaoshu's arm down, and then pulled up the quilt, and then he breathed a sigh of relief. Zhao Xiaoshu was somewhat energetic, but at this time, the girl's shyness and reserve made her not know how to face Su Weifeng, so she could only close her eyes. But she soon fell asleep again. After she fell asleep, more than 10 minutes later, Su Weifeng once again gave her physical cooling. This time Zhao Xiaoshu did not respond, which made Su Weifeng no longer so embarrassed. But it also made Su Weifeng's heart more confused. Such a little beauty. If Su Weifeng said that he was not moved, he would definitely be lying. Fortunately, Su Weifeng had a strong willpower and controlled himself from doing anything out of line. Touching Zhao Xiaoshu's forehead, Su Weifeng felt that the temperature had dropped a lot, which made him feel relieved. Nothing happened for the time being, so he sat by the bed and practiced his true ki. I don't know how long it took. Zhao Xiaoshu suddenly moved and then turned over, and this turn almost made Su Weifeng's eyes pop out. Because Zhao Xiaoshu turned over, she was hugging the quilt, and her whole back was exposed, and also included. Su Weifeng shook his head and quickly reached out to cover her quilt. But Zhao Xiaoshu kicked the quilt away again. Su Weifeng realized that Zhao Xiaoshu was sweating all over. Cold and fever. Hot and cold is the most common reaction. Zhao Xiaoshu had been cold just now, and now she took the antipyretic medicine. She sweated all over and started to get hot. And her mind was not clear, so she reacted like this. The sweat on her head quickly condensed into water droplets and then flowed down her face. After a while, her pillow was wet. Moreover, she was holding the quilt, obviously uncomfortable, and at this time she was even trying to pull the quilt off completely. Su Weifeng was shocked. If he asked her to lift it up completely, it would be terrible, so he quickly pressed the quilt. Hot, so hot. Zhao Xiaoshu murmured, pulling out her arms, wet. Su Weifeng hesitated for a moment, knowing the best way to deal with this situation. He helped her wipe the sweat off her body, but this action was really inappropriate for a man like him. But looking at Zhao Xiaoshu's uncomfortable look, Su Weifeng really felt a little distressed. The person in front of him was a patient, and it seemed that he shouldn't worry so much about taking care of her. Su Weifeng made a quick decision in his mind, and then went to the bathroom to get a warm wet towel. In just a short while, Zhao Xiaoshu lifted all the quilts on her body. Well, this way, you don't have to lift the quilt yourself. Su Weifeng quickly wiped the sweat off her body. Since he had already done it, Su Weifeng simply let go and picked her up and moved her to another place. The place was already full of sweat. Moving to a dry place would also allow her to sleep more comfortably. While doing all this, Su Weifeng knew that Zhao Xiaoshu had opened her eyes, but he didn't know whether she was confused by the fever or shy. In short, she didn't react at all and let him do it. Almost an hour later, Zhao Xiaoshu opened her eyes again. This time her eyes became clearer, and she was obviously more energetic. But there was a strong sense of shame in her eyes. Better? Su Weifeng asked softly. Zhao Xiaoshu bit her lip and said, "Thank you, brother Su, I'm much better." Su Weifeng handed over the water cup and said, "That's good. You must be thirsty after sweating so much. Drink some water first." Zhao Xiaoshu wanted to get up, but just after getting up a little, she lay down again with a flushed face. Su Weifeng coughed lightly and said, "You are a patient. Just treat me as a doctor. Don't worry too much." Then he stretched out his arm and gently helped Zhao Xiaoshu up. When Zhao Xiaoshu was confused just now, she let Su Weifeng support her, and she didn't feel anything. But now the fever has temporarily subsided, and her senses are very clear. She was really shy and embarrassed, and her little face was red, just like she had a fever just now. But she was really thirsty, and she drank all the water in the cup in one breath, and then lay down again. "Brother Su, can you? Zhao Xiaoshu's face was flushed, and she looked at Su Weifeng pleadingly, but it was clear that she couldn't speak. "What's wrong? Do you want to go to the bathroom?" Su Weifeng asked. No, I want to put on my clothes." Zhao Xiaoshu's little face was red, and she was so shy that she was indescribably cute and beautiful. Chapter 387 Touched. Su Weifeng hesitated for a moment and said, "I think you will probably sweat again in a while. If you put it on now, I'm afraid it will be uncomfortable in a while." Zhao Xiaoshu bit his lip and said, "Then, I want to put it on too. I'm really embarrassed like this." Su Weifeng was also a little embarrassed and said, "That's right. Otherwise, I will wipe your sweat later. You can't stand it if you don't wear anything. You can wash it later if it gets wet." Brother Su. Zhao Xiaoshu stretched out his voice. The quilt was kicked twice. If she was standing, the little girl must have stamped her feet in shame and embarrassment. Su Weifeng laughed at Zhao Xiaoshu's teasing and said, "The clothes are in the closet. I'll help you get them." Yes. Zhao Xiaoshu agreed quickly. Su Weifeng went directly to the closet and took out a set of pajamas and a pair of tight panties. Zhao Xiaoshu looked at Su Weifeng holding these clothes and felt even more embarrassed. It was no worse than being touched by Su Weifeng. For a little girl, it was indeed quite embarrassing to have such clothes held by a man. "Please put on your clothes first. I'll go to the bathroom," Su Weifeng said, and went straight into the bathroom. When he came out again, Zhao Xiaoshu was already dressed. When Su Weifeng sat down beside the bed, Zhao Xiaoshu also felt more comfortable. Zhao Xiaoshu said gratefully and apologetically, "Brother Su, I'm so sorry to trouble you. I'm sick and asked you to take care of me." Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, "I just wanted to ask you, why didn't you find your classmates? They have a good relationship with you." Zhao Xiaoshu said, "They are not in school, and I couldn't find anyone else for a while, so I called Brother Su. Brother Su, I'm really sorry. I made a big shot, like you come to take care of me. Look at what you said, we are friends after all, don't think too much, and besides, a beautiful woman is in trouble. As a man, of course I have to come over without hesitation." Zhao Xiaoshu blushed slightly and said, "She is not a beauty at all. Sister Zhuangxuan is a real beauty. Haha, you are not of the same type. You are also a beauty. What have you been busy with recently?" Su Weifeng changed the subject. "I haven't done anything recently, just..." At this point, the little girl said a little embarrassedly, "I saw that there are screenwriters in Brother Su's company, and I also tried to write, but when I write, it's not a script, but a novel. I'm really stupid." "Novel? This is not bad. If you are good at this, it's not worse than screenwriting. Haven't you seen that some online writers are both famous and profitable, and their works can also be adapted into film and television dramas? This aspect is also very promising. But I don't know if it's well written." Zhao Xiaoshu's eyes lit up when Su Weifeng said that. "Then is it convenient for me to take a look? Although your brother Su's level is not very good, he usually reads a lot of novels. I can still tell whether it is good or not." Zhao Xiaoshu quickly took out his mobile phone and sent a document to Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng opened it and looked at it, while Zhao Xiaoshu looked at Su Weifeng with expectation and nervousness. Not bad. Although the writing style is still a little raw, it is still very attractive. After some polishing, it should still have a bright future. "Really?" Zhao Xiaoshu was a little excited, but immediately said, "Brother Su, don't lie to me. I want to hear the truth. This is the truth. I think it is really good. You write it first. When you write tens of thousands of words, I will take it to the company for evaluation to see if it can be adapted. If it is feasible, our company will buy the copyright of your novel and let our screenwriter adapt it." "This, Brother Su, don't scare me." Zhao Xiaoshu stuttered a little. Su Weifeng smiled and said, "What's the point of me lying to you? And I didn't say it will definitely work, but if it doesn't work the first time, then writing another book may improve a lot." Zhao Xiaoshu immediately clenched his fist and said, "Yeah, I'm not afraid of failure. I will definitely work hard." The two talked for a while, and Zhao Xiaoshu's eyes began to fight again, and his arms began to hug the quilt tightly, and the temperature of his forehead rose again. Su Weifeng touched her forehead and said, "Don't talk anymore. I'll cool you down physically." "Okay, thank you, Brother Su." This time, because of the clothes, Zhao Xiaoshu was no longer so embarrassed. After another chill, it didn't take long before she started to feel hot again and began to sweat profusely all over her body. But this time Zhao Xiaoshu was not delirious with fever and was still awake. "Shall I wipe your sweat off again?" Su Weifeng said. "Zhao Xiaoshu was embarrassed again. Su Weifeng touched Zhao Xiaoshu's forehead and said, "Don't think too much. Getting well soon is better than anything else." He took a wet towel and wiped the exposed parts of Zhao Xiaoshu first, but it was not convenient for Su Weifeng to do it inside the clothes. Zhao Xiaoshu bit her lip and said, Brother Su, it's okay." Su Weifeng took action now. Anyway, he had taken action on everything that was not wearing before, so what was inconvenient now? After dealing with it again, Zhao Xiaoshu fell asleep quickly. All of a sudden, Zhao Xiaoshu slept until dawn. When she opened her eyes again, she felt that she was no longer uncomfortable, and then she saw Su Weifeng half leaning against the head of the bed. Su Weifeng closed his eyes, with a slightly tired look on his face. Zhao Xiaoshu couldn't move her eyes away from Su Weifeng's face. He was a company boss, and he took care of her all night without taking off his clothes, and he took care of her so attentively. Although Zhao Xiaoshu was very embarrassed when she thought of the process, she felt more of an indescribable warmth and happiness in her heart. Since her parents passed away, she has experienced so many vicissitudes of life. Many men who want to help her want to possess her body, but Su Weifeng is not like that at all. In that situation last night, Su Weifeng did not do anything. Su Weifeng's senses are extremely sensitive. Even if he fell asleep, he would wake up immediately if someone stared at him. When she opened her eyes, she saw Zhao Xiaoshu's gaze. She reached out and touched her forehead, saying, "Are you still feeling uncomfortable now? I should be fine." Zhao Xiaoshu grinned, then suddenly grabbed Su Weifeng's wrist, pulled it to her face, and put her face on Su Weifeng's palm. Su Weifeng was stunned for a moment, staring at Zhao Xiaoshu. Zhao Xiaoshu shook her head slightly and gently rubbed Su Weifeng's palm with her face, saying, "Brother Su, thank you. It's been a long time since someone took care of me like this. It's been a long time." As she spoke, tears flowed down her cheeks onto Su Weifeng's hands. Chapter 388 Zhao Xiaoshu's Initiative. Su Weifeng made Zhao Xiaoshu feel sad and said softly, "If you have any problems in the future, you can find Brother Su." Zhao Xiaoshu raised her head slightly, looked at Su Weifeng, and there were more tears in her eyes, and then she said softly, "Su Weifeng, can you hold me for a while?" Su Weifeng hesitated for a moment, then smiled slightly and said, "Of course." Then he slid down and lay beside Zhao Xiaoshu, and his arm passed under her neck. Zhao Xiaoshu immediately turned sideways, put her arm around Su Weifeng's back, and hugged her tightly, with her head tightly pressed against Su Weifeng's chest. Su Weifeng turned his arm back and also hugged Zhao Xiaoshu. Neither of them spoke, just hugged quietly. Su Weifeng could understand that Zhao Xiaoshu didn't mean anything else now. Although she was an adult in age, she was still a child after all. Other children were loved by their parents, but she had to bear everything by herself. This girl had endured difficulties that other children had never endured. At this time, she should be looking for a sense of security and the kind of care she longed for from her family. But the hug was so tight that Zhao Xiaoshu wanted to squeeze her into Su Weifeng's body. This kind of acceptance was really strong. Su Weifeng was a normal man, and he soon had some reactions that he shouldn't have when he was hugged like this. Su Weifeng quickly shrank back, but Zhao Xiaoshu immediately entangled with him again, leaving him no way to avoid it. Perhaps he was a little uncomfortable because of being poked. Zhao Xiaoshu's arm, which was originally sandwiched between the two of them, reached down at this time. "Oh." Su Weifeng was caught off guard and immediately groaned. His face became extremely wonderful. "Brother Su, what's wrong with you?" Zhao Xiaoshu still didn't understand. "Xiaoshu, it's almost time to get up." Su Weifeng quickly pulled Zhao Xiaoshu's arm away and sat up. Zhao Xiaoshu glanced at it and suddenly found that there was something strange. His face suddenly turned red. He groaned and shrank his head into the quilt. Su Weifeng hurried to the bathroom and washed his face with cold water to cool down. After coming out, Zhao Xiaoshu was still lying on the bed, looking at him with burning eyes. Su Weifeng sat down on the bed, touched her head, and said, "I'm sorry, Brother Su shouldn't have thought about such a mess just now. I'm sorry for offending you." Zhao Xiaoshu suddenly held Su Weifeng's hand, bit her lip, met Su Weifeng's gaze, and said in an extremely firm tone, "Brother Su, if you want, Xiaoshu is willing." "Ah." Su Weifeng was dumbfounded. Zhao Xiaoshu bit her lip and said, "Brother Su, since my parents passed away, you are the only one who truly cares for me and loves me. It is my greatest blessing to meet Brother Su. I know that Brother Su has a girlfriend, and I also know that I'm not as good as your girlfriend. I have never thought of destroying your relationship. I'm just willing to do that with brother Su. For a girl to say such words is definitely the best compliment for a man, and Zhao Xiaoshu is not the kind of scheming bitch. This must be her true words. Su Weifeng was really moved. He held her little hand and said, "Silly girl, just now it was just a normal reaction of man. If I didn't react while holding a beauty like you, it would be abnormal. I understand, but I really want to. I don't want to repay a favor or anything. I just really want to. In the future, if brother Su wants to find me, he can find me. If not, I will never harass you, brother Su." Zhao Xiaoshu said this, and suddenly leaned over, hugged Su Weifeng directly, and kissed him on the lips. This usually well-behaved little girl showed a completely different boldness than usual. It must be said that Su Weifeng's will was not particularly firm at this time. Otherwise, with his reaction, he could definitely easily fend off Zhao Xiaoshu. In addition to the fact that pushing the girl away directly like this would hurt her, the most important thing was that Su Weifeng was moved by Zhao Xiaoshu in his heart and agreed a little. After kissing on the lips, Zhao Xiaoshu suddenly hugged Su Weifeng's neck tightly with both arms. Su Weifeng only felt a buzz in his head, and his arms subconsciously hugged Zhao Xiaoshu tightly. Zhao Xiaoshu got a response from Su Weifeng, and his reaction was immediately stronger. His arms hugged tighter and the kiss became more intense. After a while, the two of them were lying on the bed hugging each other so tightly, and kissing so intensely. Lips parted, Zhao Xiaoshu's eyes were full of deep affection, and he put his lips close to Su Weifeng's ear and whispered, "Brother Su, this is my first time, I don't know what to do." Su Weifeng was also confused, but after hearing this, the desire in his mind was instantly sobered up. It was Zhao Xiaoshu's first time. What a pure little girl. If he really did that, wouldn't it hurt her? This is absolutely not possible. Su Weifeng took a deep breath, calmed his emotions, and thought about how to stop the current situation. After all, it has developed to this point, and directly saying that he doesn't want to do it anymore, it may also be a very sad thing for the girl. He tilted his head and gently kissed Zhao Xiaoshu's forehead. Then he said softly, "Xiaoshu, I feel like we are not there yet. I'm so hasty to possess you. I feel like I will regret it in the future." "Regret?" Zhao Xiaoshu hurriedly said, "Brother Su, you really don't have to worry. I really did it voluntarily. I won't pester you, let alone disturb you. I won't even call you if you don't look for me in the future." Su Weifeng touched Zhao Xiaoshu's cheek, smiled slightly, and said, "Silly girl, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm afraid that I will regret possessing you so hastily in the future. You are so cute. Even if I possess you, I should be in a better atmosphere, so that I can remember it for a lifetime." Zhao Xiaoshu looked at Su Weifeng in a daze, and soon her face was full of emotion, and she said, "Brother Su, I don't need you to remember me forever. Today you leave me and forget me. I have no regrets. I just hope that I can remember Brother Su for the rest of my life. I remember that I used to be Brother Su's person. I gave my most precious thing to Brother Su. I'm the happiest." The more Zhao Xiaoshu said this, the more guilty Su Weifeng felt. There was even more distress in his eyes. He said, "Silly girl, you really make me feel strongly guilty. Brother Su, this is what I long for. I took the initiative. You don't have to feel guilty." At this point, Zhao Xiaoshu's little hand actually touched Su Weifeng. Chapter 389 3 Months Agreement. Su Weifeng grabbed Zhao Xiaoshu's hand, then pulled it out, and kissed it gently, saying, "Xiaoshu, I know you are sincere, but you must be impulsive as well. I don't want anything to happen that will make you regret your whole life when you are impulsive." Zhao Xiaoshu's eyes suddenly turned red, and tears quickly gathered in her eyes. She choked and said, "Brother Su, do you dislike me?" Su Weifeng wiped her tears and said gently, "You are so beautiful, and have a good body. I have verified it myself. How could I dislike you? But, you don't want me?" Zhao Xiaoshu still felt aggrieved. "Well, if you still have this idea after half a year, I will definitely not refuse." Zhao Xiaoshu sobbed and said, You are trying to evade me." Su Weifeng said hurriedly, "Absolutely not. Big brother Su always keeps his word." Zhao Xiaoshu met Su Weifeng's gaze, then pouted and said, "That won't work. It's too long. 1 month. 1 month is too short. You won't have thought it through by then." Then 2 months. No, half a year. Then 3 months. Otherwise I will think you are lying to me and that you despise me. Su Weifeng couldn't help but smile, scratched Zhao Xiaoshu's nose, and said lovingly, Xiaoshu can actually act like a spoiled child and a rogue like this. Okay. Then 3 months. Zhao Xiaoshu immediately laughed happily and said with a little pride, that's settled. I believe that I will not regret it after 3 months. By then, I will be able to get Big Brother Su. Su Weifeng shook his head and said helplessly, PFFT, why do I feel that I should be the one saying this? Zhao Xiaoshu was even happier, twisting gently in Su Weifeng's arms, saying, I don't care, I just want you. After saying all this, the two of them stayed in bed for a while. Anyway, they had already done too much just now, so there was no need to pretend to be a gentleman now. Zhao Xiaoshu had to go to class today, and Su Weifeng had to go to work, so despite Zhao Xiaoshu's reluctance, the two got up and left the small house. They sent Zhao Xiaoshu to the school gate. Zhao Xiaoshu did not get out of the car immediately, but came over and kissed Su Weifeng gently on the face, saying, 3 months. Then he jumped out of the car happily. Watching Zhao Xiaoshu walk into the school with light steps, she turned back and waved from time to time, just like a little girl in love, which made Su Weifeng smile bitterly. He had calmed down when driving just now. Some things were also more clear. Although Zhao Xiaoshu was beautiful and cute, and especially well behaved, he also believed that Zhao Xiaoshu really would not pester her. But Su Weifeng knew very well that he only felt pity for Zhao Xiaoshu, not real love. What he did with her just now was just a man's instinctive desire, not a natural response to real feelings. Just like the contact that happened just now, this should be something he had never experienced with Lin Zhuangxuan and Qiao Yushan. If there was real feelings, this kind of strong contact would probably trigger that wonderful state, but there was no reaction at all, which also proved this point. Men are indeed animals who think with their lower body, but whether they can control their own needs is the difference between a person with a sense of responsibility or not. Su Weifeng is obviously still a person with a strong sense of responsibility, which was cultivated in the army, and is a kind of persistence that has been engraved in his bones. As for 3 months later, Su Weifeng believes that Zhao Xiaoshu will not be so impulsive when she calms down. In addition, within these 3 months, Su Weifeng will not give Zhao Xiaoshu any chances. The two do not have so much contact, and I think Zhao Xiaoshu will re-examine their relationship. He believes that Zhao Xiaoshu can think it through. Arriving at the company, Su Weifeng entered the office. Not long after, Lin Zhuangxuan came over. She came directly to his side, and then looked Su Weifeng up and down, and even put her nose close to Su Weifeng to sniff. Su Weifeng did say hello to Lin Zhuangxuan about taking care of Zhao Xiaoshu, but at this time, he was still very guilty. What are you doing? Like a puppy. Su Weifeng glared at her fiercely. Su Weifeng, you bastard, did you harm the girl? Lin Zhuangxuan was even more fierce than Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng snorted and said, nonsense, am I that kind of person? Lin Zhuangxuan sniffed and said, you still say no, you obviously smell like a girl, which can only be acquired through close contact. Su Weifeng also admired Lin Zhuangxuan's nose. How could he not notice any smell? At this time, he could only bite the bullet and say, she was confused, because of the fever. I took care of her, so I must hold her, and feed her medicine. Physical contact is normal, right? Okay, even if this is normal, how do you explain this? Lin Zhuangxuan pointed at his lips. What's wrong with me? Su Weifeng suddenly felt guilty. Look for yourself, don't tell me that your lips are swollen from bumping into something. Lin Zhuangxuan took out his mobile phone, turned on the camera, and pointed it at Su Weifeng's face. Su Weifeng looked at himself on the phone. It seemed that there was nothing wrong, but it seemed a little swollen. What else do you have to say? Lin Zhuangxuan stared at Su Weifeng and said with gritted teeth, don't tell me that you did this to recover from your injuries. Su Weifeng was speechless for a moment, and he opened his mouth, but couldn't say a word. Well, you actually did that to a little girl, you. Lin Zhuangxuan bit her lip, and in her anger there was a strong sense of grievance, and tears flowed out involuntarily. Su Weifeng subconsciously reached out and grabbed Lin Zhuangsun and said anxiously, Zhuangsun, I admit that I kissed Zhao Xiaoshu, but there was absolutely no such relationship. No, are you kidding me? Lin Zhuangsun pulled his arm hard. Su Weifeng held on tighter, as if he let go, Lin Zhuangsun would run away, and said anxiously, Zhuangsun, I admit that I was confused at that time. I will never do it again. Please don't be angry. Lin Zhuangsun said bitterly, you kissed someone, and you still asked me not to be angry. Do you think I'm so heartless? I also know that I'm sorry for you, Zhuangsun, alas. Su Weifeng let go of his hand helplessly. Lin Zhuangsun immediately ran to the door. Su Weifeng looked at her back and felt a strong sense of loss in his heart, which seemed to mean that from now on, Lin Zhuangsun and him would have nothing to do with each other. But when Lin Zhuangsun ran to the door, she suddenly stopped, turned around, and walked quickly to Su Weifeng again. Zhuangsun. Su Weifeng was so nervous that his breathing was a little difficult. You just said, you are sorry for me? Lin Zhuangsun narrowed her eyes and asked slowly. Chapter 390. Just let it go? Yes, I really feel sorry for you. I really won't do it again. Su Weifeng said quickly. Lin Zhuangsun raised his chin and said, you bastard, I still want a future? No, there is no future. Su Weifeng felt that Lin Zhuangsun's attitude had eased, which was a pleasant surprise. He quickly grabbed Lin Zhuangsun's arm. Since you have a good attitude in admitting your mistakes, I won't bother with you. Su Weifeng widened his eyes and said in disbelief, just let it go? You wishful thinking. I can let it go, but it doesn't mean I will let you go. Tonight, I will punish you to accompany me shopping and watching movies. If I'm not satisfied, okay, absolutely no problem. Su Weifeng quickly agreed. Lin Zhuangsun shook off Su Weifeng's hand. Don't talk so nicely. Then he puffed out his chest, raised his chin, and walked out so proudly. Su Weifeng was completely confused. Lin Zhuangsun was so easy to talk to, which was really beyond his expectation. Lin Zhuangsun returned to her office. Her eyes were shining, the corners of her mouth were curled up, and there was an indescribable pride on her face. You are so stubborn. You always seem to be indifferent to me. Now you show it, right? But this bastard actually kissed the girl. It's really hateful. Zhao Xiaoshu is a cute girl, but this guy shouldn't be so proactive. It must be the girl who took the initiative. I didn't expect that this little girl would be so bold. Is it because I didn't show enough initiative, so this guy didn't react? Alas, even if this guy's my fake brother-in-law, I can't take the initiative with this title. If he does something, and my sister knows about it, wouldn't I be sorry for her? Lin Zhuangsun felt that Su Weifeng really had feelings for her, and she was still happy in her heart, but when she thought of this, she was a little distressed. She envied Zhao Xiaoshu a little. Without her relationship with Qiao Yushan, she could be bold. After get off work, Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangsun left the company together. Sitting in the car, Su Weifeng said cautiously, Zhuangsun, how about we go to Wanda? There we can eat, go shopping, and watch a movie, so we don't have to change places. Lin Zhuangsun said with a stern face, okay. Su Weifeng felt that Lin Zhuangsun was still angry, and he was a little uneasy. Suddenly, he remembered a sentence, a hero is hard to resist the temptation of beauty. Even in the face of various dangers, Su Weifeng would not be afraid at all, but he was really afraid of Lin Zhuangsun's angry face. The two came to Wanda and went shopping first. At this time, Su Weifeng fulfilled his boyfriend's responsibilities very competently. As long as Lin Zhuangsun liked something, he would buy it immediately. Lin Zhuangsun is now a small rich woman, and naturally she cares about money, but she is still very happy to see Su Weifeng running around to pay for her. That stern little face is getting more and more unstable. By the time of dinner, Lin Zhuangsun had already smiled. But Su Weifeng was still a little trembling. There was nothing he could do. He felt guilty after doing something wrong. If it was a trivial matter, it would be fine. But this was a big mistake. Even if ordinary people forgave him, it would still make a fuss for several days. If Lin Zhuangsun didn't take this matter seriously, Su Weifeng himself didn't believe it. After dinner, the two went to the cinema upstairs. Su Weifeng asked, what movie shall we watch? Lin Zhuangxuan pouted and said, "You took me to see a movie, so of course you have the final say on what movie we watch." Su Weifeng works in the video industry, so he naturally has some understanding of the recently released movies and the reputation of each movie. He said, "There are two good movies released recently. One is a Hollywood blockbuster, and the other is a domestic drama with a very good reputation. Why don't we watch this domestic drama?" Lin Zhuangxuan said unsatisfiedly, I don't think it's interesting. We make almost the same type of movies every day." Then, Su Weifeng thought for a while, and went through all the recently released movies. Then he looked at Lin Zhuangxuan and said tentatively, "How about, let's watch that horror movie?" Lin Zhuangxuan snorted and said, "Bad guy, what are you thinking about taking a girl to see a horror movie? Tell me." "No, then let's not watch a horror movie. Let me think about it." "No, let's just watch this. I want to see what you, a bad guy, dare to do to me." After Lin Zhuangxuan finished speaking, she walked towards the ticket office in a very arrogant manner. Su Weifeng was speechless, but since Lin Zhuangxuan had made a choice, he certainly could not object, and hurried over to buy the ticket. There were quite a few people buying tickets at this time, and Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan lined up. After waiting for a while, it was finally their turn, but a man and a woman suddenly came from the side and squeezed directly in front of Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan. Lin Zhuangxuan immediately refused to accept it and said angrily, "Do you understand the rules? Do you know how to queue?" The man turned his head to look at Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan, curled his lips in disdain, and said, "Aren't we in front of you?" Lin Zhuangxuan said angrily, "It's obvious that you forced your way in. Sister, what you said is so right. What's the matter?" While talking, he looked up and down at Lin Zhuangxuan in a wretched manner. When the man said this, the woman next to him actually giggled. Su Weifeng didn't want to bother with such people, but these two people actually used such insulting language. His face suddenly darkened and he said, "Shut your stinky mouths. Hey, kid, you think you're so awesome? What, you want to fight?" The man looked at Su Weifeng with evil eyes. The woman said excitedly, "You two guys, don't you know the reputation of our brother Lindsay? Do you know that in this area, brother Lindsay is the boss? If you provoke brother Lindsay, he will kill you at will." The people in the SYNOPSIS wanted to see anyone making trouble here. Several people came over immediately to block a few people. One of them hurriedly said to Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan, "Everyone, we are all here to watch a movie. Don't argue. We will give you the VIP channel here." With someone intervening, Su Weifeng couldn't take any more action. Although Lin Zhuangxuan was also annoyed, thinking that this was the first time she went out to watch a movie with Su Weifeng, she really didn't want to ruin the mood, so she took Su Weifeng's arm and said, "Forget it, let's buy tickets and go to the movie." Su Weifeng didn't want to ruin the atmosphere either, so he nodded and agreed. Chapter 391, Deserve a Beating. Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan bought some popcorn and drinks, and then checked their tickets, and entered the theater. Today is not the weekend, and the reputation of this horror movie is just average. In addition, the screening period is also relatively long, so there are not many people watching the movie. In addition to them, there are only two people sitting in the last row, a man and a woman. Lin Zhuangxuan chuckled and said, "This is good, we almost booked the theater." Su Weifeng said, "We are taking advantage of paying ordinary tickets to book the theater to watch the movie." Lin Zhuangxuan smiled and said, "The most important thing is that, if I scream out of fear, no one will laugh at us." While the two were talking and laughing, the lights in the theater dimmed, and advertisements and safety precautions began to play on the big screen. But at this time, two more people walked in. "Oh, it's about to start. Brother Lin, hurry up. Don't worry, there's nothing interesting in the front. It's not scary at all." Hearing these two voices, Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan looked at each other and frowned. These two guys were clearly the two guys who had a conflict with them when they were buying tickets just now. "Where are our seats? There's not many people here. Let's just sit anywhere." The two spoke loudly, as if no one was around. Soon, the two sat down and actually chose the seats behind Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan. The movie officially began to play, and the front created a rather scary atmosphere, which frightened Lin Zhuangxuan so much that her heart was hanging in the air. She subconsciously grabbed Su Weifeng's arm with both hands. I'm telling you, this movie is the most boring. This place originally looked scary, as if something was going to come out, but what came out was a puppy. Oh my god, it's just a puppy. I thought a ghost would appear. Ha, even if it's a real ghost, it's nothing to be afraid of. I'm telling you, the following part is even more boring. That woman is going to die soon. She was strangled to death. Guess who strangled her to death? Who? It's Lin Zhuangxuan finally couldn't stand it anymore. When the two came in, they kicked their legs on the back of her chair. It was fine to kick, but they were still shaking their legs there, which made Lin Zhuangxuan very uncomfortable. But now they are still giving spoilers. Is this movie still watchable? Lin Zhuangxuan turned around and said angrily, "Can you please stop spoiling the movie?" The man curled his lips and said, "We are talking about our own things. It's none of your business." The woman also said arrogantly, "Yes, if you don't want to listen, plug your ears, or go to the side to watch. Who told you to sit in front of us?" Lin Zhuangxuan gritted his teeth and said, "Do you know that spoiling the movie is the most uncivilized thing? I didn't spoil it for you, so you won't not listen? Or you can just plug your ears." When the man said this, the light in the hall suddenly brightened, and he saw Lin Zhuangxuan's face clearly, and said, "So it's you two. This is really a narrow road for enemies. I like spoilers. You can think of any tricks, and you can chant any curses." As they spoke, the man and the woman actually raised their legs, and placed them directly on the backs of Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan's chairs, not behind the backs of the chairs, but on top, with the soles of their shoes almost sticking to their faces. Lin Zhuangxuan stood up suddenly, his face was blue with anger. Su Weifeng also stood up and said coldly, "You'd better take your foot back now, apologize and get out of here." The man shook his foot, and said in a provocative tone, "I won't let go. So what? You bastard, do you still want to be tough with me? When I'm tough, you don't even know where to suck milk." Su Weifeng didn't say anything, but suddenly stretched out his hand, and grabbed the man's ankle. "What do you want to do? Fuck you, let me go." The guy cursed, and kicked Su Weifeng's arm with his other foot. But before he kicked Su Weifeng's arm, a huge force suddenly came from his ankle, and then the whole person flew up. Su Weifeng grabbed his leg, swung it in the air, and then smashed him directly into the aisle between the two rows of seats. He is a well-mannered person, and will definitely not do anything to destroy public property. Gap. The boy was like a toad being stepped on, and felt as if all the bones in his body were broken. Su Weifeng looked at the woman. With a whoosh, the woman quickly retracted her foot and stammered, "It's none of my business, none of my business. Get lost." Su Weifeng shouted again. The woman hurried over to help the man up, and the two stumbled to the entrance of the screening room. "Boy, you dare to touch me, you wait. If I can let you leave this cinema today, I will be yours." After throwing down a harsh word, the two guys fled in embarrassment. The two guys stepped on the back of the chair, and both of them felt uncomfortable sitting there. Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan moved their seats to the side, before sitting down again. Lin Zhuangxuan pouted and said, "HMPH, these two guys are so annoying. Now we can finally have some peace and quiet." Su Weifeng nodded and said, "Yeah, they deserved a beating." Lin Zhuangxuan hugged Su Weifeng's arm, and whispered in his ear, "You were really handsome just now." "That's right." Su Weifeng straightened his chest. Let's watch a movie." Lin Zhuangxuan hugged Su Weifeng's arm with one hand, and held popcorn in the other hand, constantly putting it into her mouth. No one spoiled it. This kind of horror movie can still stimulate the senses. I don't know if Lin Zhuangxuan was really scared, or did it on purpose. She would stick to Su Weifeng from time to time. It seems that she was so scared that she went straight into his arms, which made Su Weifeng take advantage of her. Of course, with Su Weifeng's mental quality, watching such a movie, he couldn't feel the horror at all, and he took advantage of Lin Zhuangxuan, which made him enjoy it more. After the movie, Lin Zhuangxuan walked out holding Su Weifeng's arm. As soon as he reached the exit, Su Weifeng saw the guy he had just beaten. The guy sneered at Su Weifeng and said nothing. Su Weifeng didn't bother to pay attention to him, and walked out with Lin Zhuangxuan. Lin Zhuangxuan naturally saw the guy, and found that the guy was still following behind. He whispered, "It seems that this guy has been beaten, but he still doesn't give up. It seems that he wants to be beaten a second time." Su Weifeng chuckled and said, if he wants to be beaten, then I think I can only help him. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 392. This is my boss. Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan walked out of the gate of Wanda and walked slowly towards the parking lot. The guy who followed them was talking on the phone at this time, and soon several people ran over to join him. The boy immediately became energetic and ran over with his men and directly stopped Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan. The boy pointed at Su Weifeng and shouted, "Boy, where the hell are you going this time?" Su Weifeng looked at him with amusement and said, "What? You think you can beat me just by bringing a few people?" The boy felt weak in his heart. He also thought about the throw of Su Weifeng just now. With just one hand, he could lift a man weighing 140 to 50 kilograms. How much strength is in this arm is simply unimaginable. But when he saw two people staggering over there, the boy's confidence came all of a sudden. "Boy, you really think you have some tricks, so you start to show off in front of me, right? I tell you, you are really dead this time. Do you know who my boss is?" Su Weifeng asked cooperatively. "Who is your boss?" "Our boss is the famous Wang Bao." When the name was mentioned, the boy's back straightened up all of a sudden. Wang Bao? Su Weifeng frowned slightly, feeling as if he had heard of this name, but he couldn't remember it for a moment. The guy shouted with full confidence, "Boy, are you scared now? Why don't you kneel down and apologize to me?" Su Weifeng chuckled, and then he remembered who Wang Bao was, and said, "Then call your boss over, I want to see what he can do to me." "Damn, you are so arrogant, you dare not take Brother Bao seriously." Su Weifeng said lightly, "Yeah, I don't take him seriously." The boy glared and shouted, "Brother Bao, this boy actually doesn't take you seriously. If I don't kill him today, wouldn't it weaken your prestige, Brother Bao? Who is so bold?" A man's voice came from behind Su Weifeng, with a strong anger in his voice. "It's this guy, Brother Bao. It's fine if he doesn't take me seriously, but he actually dares to say that to you, Brother Bao. We must kill him. Humph, I want to see who is challenging me." Following the sound, Wang Bao walked around and walked in front of Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng stood there, not saying a word, just looking at Wang Bao quietly. When Wang Bao saw Su Weifeng, his face suddenly became extremely ugly, and then the corners of his mouth twitched violently twice. The boy came to Wang Bao at this time and said flatteringly, "Brother Bao, this boy's girl is pretty good. Kill him, and we'll play with his girl." "Pa." Wang Bao suddenly slapped the boy in the face. Everyone was stunned for a moment, and the boy was even more stunned. He covered his face with one hand and stammered, Brother Bao, why did you hit me?" "Hit you?" Wang Bao suddenly shouted, kicked the boy to a somersault, and then rushed over to punch and kick him again, cursing while beating him. "I'm hitting you. You are really capable. You dare to mess with anyone. You want to die, but do you want to take me with you?" After hitting him a few times, Wang Bao shouted again, "What the hell are you standing there for? Beat him." "Hit? Who?" a little brother asked in a daze. "Fuck, of course I'm going to hit this bastard." Wang Bao was so angry that his eyes were about to pop out. Although the little brothers didn't understand what was going on, they rushed over and punched and kicked the boy on the ground. When the boss said so, Wang Bao stopped and walked in front of Su Weifeng. He smiled, then coughed and said, "Brother, it's all because of this kid's blindness. I didn't mean to pick on you, the boss." Su Weifeng snorted and said, "You're still pretty impressive now." Wang Bao felt a chill on his back. He would never forget the last time he faced Su Weifeng, the terrifying feeling of being shrouded in death. Although he didn't feel that way this time, he still felt that, if he didn't do it well, he might die in a very ugly way. "Brother, I haven't done anything harmful to the world recently. This time, I heard from this kid that someone had picked him up. I thought he was a good player and wanted to recruit him. I didn't expect it to be you, the boss." "Oh, you still want to recruit me?" Wang Bao said hurriedly. No. How can I have the guts?" "Okay, get out." Su Weifeng didn't have a good impression of Wang Bao. This kind of person must have done a lot of bad things, but he didn't fall into his hands when he was doing bad things, so he didn't have to deal with him. Wang Bao accompanied Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan to the car and opened the door for them personally, being as respectful as a younger brother. The younger brother stopped what they were doing and stared at it in amazement. When had their boss ever been so flattering to others? After Su Weifeng's car left, Wang Bao breathed a sigh of relief. He raised his hand and touched his head, which was covered with sweat. Talking to Su Weifeng was too stressful for him. A younger brother asked cautiously, "Boss, who was that man just now?" "Him? You'd better remember him. Don't mess with him in the future, or I'll kill you." Wang Bao's eyes were full of ferocity. The younger brother stuck out his tongue and said, "Oh my god, Brother Bao, that guy is so powerful. Humph, his level is no longer comparable to those of us who are mixed up in the society. I won't tell you this, you won't understand, even if I tell you. Humph, Xiao Lindsay, you are really brave. You ask me to help you with someone I don't even dare to offend. Do you think I'm too old?" Wang Bao punched and kicked Lindsay again to resolve the fear in his heart. Xiao Lindsay was crying and shouting, and he regretted it so much. If he had known that the guy was so powerful even Brother Bao couldn't afford to offend him. Even if he had 8 guts, he wouldn't dare to offend him. Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan returned home quickly. Just after returning to the room to change clothes, he had just taken off his clothes and was only wearing a small pair of shorts when Lin Zhuangxuan rushed in like a gust of wind. "What are you doing?" Su Weifeng's face suddenly turned black. Lin Zhuangxuan patted her chest. Her face turned pale, and she looked frightened. She said, "I just returned to the room, and I always felt something behind me. It's so scary. No, I can't leave you for a moment today." Su Weifeng said with a smile, "Is it really that serious? The movie is just average." "What do you mean it's really that serious? Anyway, I'm really scared. Please, I beg you, I can't sleep alone tonight." After saying that, Lin Zhuangxuan jumped onto the bed and got into the quilt, leaving only her head exposed. It seems that this girl will definitely sleep in his bed again today. Chapter 393 The Aftermath of a Horror Movie. Su Weifeng couldn't stop her, so he could only say, "I'll take a shower first." "Hurry up." Lin Zhuangxuan pouted, looking pitiful and begging. "Okay." Su Weifeng shook his head and went straight into the bathroom. A big villa has its advantages. The bathroom is also big enough, and there is a large bathtub inside. However, Su Weifeng was too lazy to run water for a bath, so he just turned on the shower head to take a shower. After applying shampoo on his head, Su Weifeng just rubbed it a few times and heard Lin Zhuangxuan scream, and then the bathroom door was pushed open and Lin Zhuangxuan rushed in like the wind. "What's wrong?" Su Weifeng was startled, thinking that something happened to Lin Zhuangxuan. Lin Zhuangxuan's little face turned pale, and she stammered, "Outside. There seems to be someone outside." "Someone?" Su Weifeng frowned, turned off the shower head, and listened carefully, but he didn't hear any sound. With his hearing ability, if someone sneaked in, he would definitely be able to hear it, and he couldn't help but look at Lin Zhuangxuan in confusion. Oh my god. Su Weifeng suddenly found that Lin Zhuangxuan was looking at him with a flushed face. He suddenly realized a problem, uttered a low cry, and turned around quickly. "I'm taking a shower. Why did you come in?" Su Weifeng said unhappily. Lin Zhuangxuan pouted and said guiltily, "I'm scared. I always feel that something is outside the window secretly looking in. Why don't you go out now?" Lin Zhuangxuan said very straightforwardly, "I won't. I'm scared alone in the room." Su Weifeng said with a black line, "Then do you still want to watch me take a shower? It won't hurt to watch, and I saw it just now." After Lin Zhuangxuan finished speaking, he actually chuckled. Su Weifeng's face turned black, and he said, "Zhuangxuan, it's so embarrassing for a girl like you to watch me take a shower." Lin Zhuangxuan raised her chin and said, "Why can't I watch? You kissed someone, and you said you didn't do anything. How do I know if you did it? I have to check it out, right?" This sentence hit the vital point, and Su Weifeng was speechless. He smiled bitterly and said, "My aunt, then look, you look so good." "Humph, what's so good about it? Take a shower quickly, I'm too lazy to look at you." Su Weifeng turned his head and found that Lin Zhuangxuan had turned her back and no longer looked at him. He was slightly relieved. Knowing that it was impossible to get Lin Zhuangxuan out in this situation, he could only quickly wash twice and pull his pajamas over his body. Okay, go to bed, Su Weifeng said. Lin Zhuangxuan stood there without moving. Su Weifeng said in a puzzled manner, "What's wrong with you? We sleep together, and you still want to sleep here?" Lin Zhuangxuan pouted and said, "But I have to take a shower too. How can I sleep without a shower?" Su Weifeng suddenly widened his eyes, twitched his mouth twice, and said, "You won't let me accompany you to take a shower, right?" "Yes." Lin Zhuangxuan raised his chin, and looked aggressive. Su Weifeng shook his head repeatedly and said, "Don't make trouble. This is absolutely not allowed." Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly fell again, grabbed Su Weifeng's arm, shook it gently twice, and said, "Just accompany me. I'm really scared. Without you by my side, I feel that something will come out of the faucet, and something may also come out of the toilet. I even feel that there is something lying on my back." While speaking, Lin Zhuangxuan couldn't help shivering twice, shaking his head, looking around, and his little face turned pale again. "This is really scared." Su Weifeng was really at a loss for words this time, and said, You are so scared. Then what horror movies do you watch? I didn't expect that I would be so scared. If I knew, I wouldn't dare to watch it either. You accompany me. I have seen you. I'm not afraid of you looking at me. Okay. Su Weifeng still shook his head. Seeing that Su Weifeng still refused, Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly shook Su Weifeng's arm in anger and said, "Do you have that little girl's Zhao and don't want me anymore?" "Of course not." Su Weifeng shook his head in denial. "Then accompany me, or I will think you have fallen in love with someone else." Okay. Su Weifeng finally compromised, but he still turned around. Listening to the sound of water behind him, Su Weifeng's mind was really messed up. He could even roughly judge what Lin Zhuangxuan was doing through the sound of water. This kind of imaginary scene was really uncomfortable. He wanted to turn his head and take a sneak peek several times. "Hey, don't you want to see me take a bath?" Lin Zhuangxuan chuckled and deliberately provoked Su Weifeng. "No." Su Weifeng answered firmly. Lin Zhuangxuan asked again, "Do you not want to see, or do you dare not see?" "I don't want to see," Su Weifeng said with his mouth not in his heart. Hypocrisy. You want to see it, just because you want to see it, but you just don't dare to see it. What's the matter? Are you afraid that I will suffer a loss if you see it? You are not a girl. Only girls will suffer a loss when they see a man's body. Su Weifeng's mouth twitched and said, "Okay, I dare not see it." Lin Zhuangxuan asked again with a smile, "Why don't you dare to see it?" Su Weifeng said depressedly, "My aunt, I watch you take a bath. I'm afraid that I can't control myself and do something to you again." It's okay if you want to do anything. I absolutely have no objection." Lin Zhuangxuan saw that the more Su Weifeng was afraid, the happier she was to tease Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng secretly complained that Lin Zhuangxuan was simply playing with fire. She was really a little goblin who was annoying. She was simply trying to kill him. Lin Zhuangxuan finally finished washing, but she came in a hurry and didn't bring any change of clothes, so Su Weifeng had to go out to get her some clothes. But he didn't dare to look at Lin Zhuangxuan, so he just turned his back and handed the clothes to Lin Zhuangxuan. Lin Zhuangxuan reached out to take the clothes, but immediately let out a low cry. Su Weifeng only felt that Lin Zhuangxuan fell directly out with a gust of wind. At this time, he didn't care about anything else. He turned around and hugged Lin Zhuangxuan directly. Lin Zhuangxuan was almost half lying in Su Weifeng's arms. Their eyes met, and then, the atmosphere suddenly froze. The two just looked at each other, and no one moved. It seemed like only a few seconds, or a few minutes, or even an hour. Su Weifeng quickly helped Lin Zhuangxuan up, then turned his head and said, "Hurry up and put on your clothes." Lin Zhuangxuan didn't say anything, but just put on her clothes silently, and then the two got on the bed together, still silent. Chapter 394 I'm angry. Su Weifeng felt a slight poke on his arm, and turned to look at Lin Zhuangxuan. Lin Zhuangxuan pouted with a look of resentment on her face. "What's wrong with you?" Lin Zhuangxuan snorted and said, I'm angry. You're angry? I didn't do anything to you? Su Weifeng was a little puzzled. Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly stretched out her hand and pinched Su Weifeng's arm hard and said angrily, I'm even angrier. Su Weifeng was a little confused and said, why are you angry? Can you tell me? Lin Zhuangxuan bit her lip and said, HMPH, am I not as attractive to you as that Zhao Xiaoshu? Of course not. I know very well that at that time, it was just a man's instinct. I didn't really like Zhao Xiaoshu. I didn't even show any sign of entering that state. The anger on Lin Zhuangxuan's face seized a lot at once and said, then why don't you have any impulse towards me? You hugged me so much just now and you didn't take any next step. Su Weifeng then understood what Lin Zhuangxuan was angry about. He raised his hand and pinched Lin Zhuangxuan's face gently and said, silly girl, the more I care about someone, the more I have to control myself. I can't do anything to hurt you. You're just a fool. Lin Zhuangxuan snorted but snuggled into Su Weifeng's arms. Knowing that Lin Zhuangxuan was no longer angry, Su Weifeng hugged Lin Zhuangxuan and said, okay, let's go to sleep. Lin Zhuangxuan said and stopped talking. She squeezed herself into Su Weifeng's arms and found a more comfortable position for her. Then she closed her eyes and a satisfied and happy smile appeared on her face. That night, the two of them slept quietly and nothing happened. Then Su Weifeng found that it seemed that Zhao Xiaoshu's matter was over, which was also a secret relief in his heart. Otherwise he would have to endure Lin Zhuangxuan's relentless efforts. He also had to admit that, even if he didn't really want Lin Zhuangxuan to be his real girlfriend, he had already acquiesced to the existence of this girlfriend in his heart, and even he had often faced Lin Zhuangxuan with a boyfriend's mentality. As for Qiao Yushan, it seemed that he had forgotten her these 2 days. The next day, when he was working in the office, Xu Lingling actually came to his office. Because of what happened some time ago, Lin Zhuangxuan knew that Xu Lingling's Xu family also had a better relationship with Su Weifeng, and their attitude towards Xu Lingling was somewhat relaxed, unlike before when they did not allow Xu Lingling to come to their company. However, her hostility towards Xu Lingling was still high, and she said unhappily at this time, Miss Xu, what are you doing in our little temple? Xu Lingling chuckled and said, Zhuangxuan, why are you so hostile to me? Lin Zhuangxuan glared and said, don't I know your little tricks? Xu Lingling blinked and said, brother Su's wife is Qiao Yushan, aren't you a little too nosy as a sister-in-law? When the housewarming party was held, Xu Lingling discovered that Su Weifeng and Qiao Yushan were a couple, so she was much more confident when facing Lin Zhuangxuan at this time. Lin Zhuangxuan slapped the table and stood up, saying, can't I watch for you for my sister? Xu Lingling laughed and said, don't talk nonsense there. Don't I know that you are trying to steal from the company? You, stop talking nonsense there. Lin Zhuangxuan couldn't help but feel a little weak. If this word got out, it would be very unpleasant. Xu Lingling's smile became even stronger. She blinked mischievously and said, Lin Zhuangxuan, if you like him, then you like him. As a woman, if you don't like a person like Brother Su, then it can only mean that you are blind. Besides, they are sisters, or sisters who are like twins. It's exciting to think about it. You can be with your sister. Lin Zhuangxuan's face suddenly swelled red, and he gritted his teeth and said, if you keep talking nonsense here, get out of here immediately. Xu Lingling smiled and said, okay, I won't say anything. I came to Brother Su for something serious. Humph. Lin Zhuangxuan shut up. Regarding the quarrel between the two, Su Weifeng insisted on a principle, that is, not to interrupt. If he got involved, it would only make the quarrel worse. At this time, he said, what's the matter? Xu Lingling said, Feng'an Company is going to hold a shareholders meeting. As a major shareholder, you need to attend. Su Weifeng frowned slightly and said, I don't have to show up for this kind of thing, right? You don't have to show up for other things, but you definitely can't not attend the shareholders meeting. Otherwise, other shareholders will have ideas, which is not conducive to the stable development of the company. Well, I'll go to make up the number. It starts at 2:30 in the afternoon, so you should go early. There are also some other things that I need to explain to you as a major shareholder. Su Weifeng said, is it not possible to say it now? Xu Lingling shrugged and said, I'm just responsible for notifying you. I don't know the specifics. Su Weifeng had to say, well, I'll try to go there earlier. Then see you at the company in the afternoon. Xu Lingling waved her hand, then blinked at Lin Zhuangxuan and said, don't look at me like that. I want to pursue brother Su, so I will do it openly. Unlike you who are always sneaking around. How boring. Lin Zhuangxuan gritted his teeth and said, get out of here. Xu Lingling walked out with a string of silver bell-like laughter. This woman makes me so angry. I have to stop her from coming to my company in the future. Otherwise I will get angry every time I see her. Lin Zhuangxuan stretched out her hand and pinched Su Weifeng's arm, angrily saying, it's all because of you, you bastard. You are flirting with other girls everywhere. Su Weifeng said aggrievedly, I didn't flirt with her. She took the initiative, and I always refused. Lin Zhuangxuan snorted and said, anyway, it's your problem. Su Weifeng looked at Lin Zhuangxuan's jealous look and felt that it was quite cute. He chuckled, pinched her cheeks, and said, okay, it's all my fault. I won't talk to her when I see her in the future. Humph, you say one thing and mean another. Okay, I seem unreasonable for doing this, but you are not allowed to give her a chance. This woman is the best at taking advantage of others. Su Weifeng immediately praised seriously, Zhuangxuan is indeed a reasonable person. Stop flattering me. You'd better not let me catch you, otherwise I will make you pay. You pinched my face again. Since when did you like doing this? It's really annoying. Chapter 395 Childhood Playmate. Fenggai & Company was originally the property of the Wei family, and it was a company with 2 billion assets. The Wei family originally held 50% of the shares, and Su Weifeng got 25% here, so he held 12.5% of the shares of the entire company. The ZHU family did not fancy this company, so they did not take the shares of this company, so the Xu family took advantage and got 37.5% of the total shares. The remaining 50% of the shares were held by more than 10 shareholders, and the largest was only 10%, so Su Weifeng became the second largest shareholder among these shareholders. According to his status, Su Weifeng really had to attend the shareholders meeting of this company. This afternoon, Lin Zhuangxuan needed a car, so Su Weifeng did not drive, but took a taxi and arrived at Fenggai & Company at 1:30. As soon as he got off the car, a Mercedes-Benz S-Class 320 stopped at the gate of the company, and a man in a suit walked out of the car. Su Weifeng didn't care at first, but when he looked at the man, he felt that he looked familiar, but he couldn't remember who this person was for a while. He couldn't help but look at him twice more. The man also looked at Su Weifeng, frowning slightly, obviously also having a sense of deja vu. Liu King. Su Weifeng. The two pointed at each other and spoke at the same time, recognizing each other. When Su Weifeng was a child, he lived in the family compound of his parents' company. Liu King also lived in that family compound. Liu King was 3 years older than Su Weifeng and was considered the leader among that group of children. The two of them couldn't say that they had a good relationship, but they didn't have any grudges. Even if they had some fights when they were young, no one would easily hold a grudge. Liu King's family was the first to move out of the family compound. It seemed that both of his parents quit their jobs in the company and went directly into business. I didn't expect to see you here. Liu King came over and patted Su Weifeng on the shoulder, which seemed quite warm. Seeing his childhood friend, Su Weifeng also felt in a good mood and said with a smile, Brother Liu, it seems that you are doing well, and you can even drive a Mercedes-Benz. Liu King laughed and said, I don't have any ability, I just rely on my father's good life. When they make money, I will follow Huabi, otherwise, wouldn't it be useless for them to make money? He spoke quite frankly and without any pretense. Su Weifeng also smiled and said, Brother Liu, don't be modest. Okay, don't talk about these useless things. It's been 17 or 18 years since I left the family compound. Sometimes I really miss you guys who follow me. Leave me your phone number and find a time to go out for a drink later. The two exchanged phone numbers, and Liu King said with a smile, What are you doing here? Su Weifeng said, I just came here to do something. Brother Liu, how about you? Liu King seemed quite helpless and said, "My father is a shareholder of this company. This is a shareholders meeting. I'm here to attend a meeting on behalf of my father." Su Weifeng's face suddenly became a little strange. Liu King patted him on the shoulder and said, "I don't mean to show off to you. Our family only owns a small share here, which is nothing great. By the way, although I don't participate in the management of this company, I have some face here. If you need help, I can help you." Su Weifeng coughed lightly and said, "Thank you, brother Liu. I can do it myself." Liu King glared and said, "Why are you being polite to me? What kind of friendship do we have? It's a friendship that we have played together naked since we were young. It's not the kind of fake friends that involve interests. If you don't let me help, then you are looking down on me, brother Liu." Su Weifeng rubbed his nose and said, "I'm here to attend the shareholders meeting too." Liu King was stunned for a moment, then punched Su Weifeng directly and said, "You little brat, if you don't want to say it, then don't say it. You even bring it up with me. Although I rarely contact you, I know that your parents are still in the factory and you have gone out to serve in the army. If you are joking, it would be too pretentious if you talk to me." Su Weifeng was at a loss whether to laugh or cry. He told the truth, but Liu King didn't believe him at all. He could only smile bitterly and said, "Yes, brother Liu is teaching you a lesson. I was just joking with you." "That's better. Just tell me what you are doing here. If you don't tell me, you are not giving face to your brother Liu." Liu King's enthusiasm made Su Weifeng feel helpless, so he could only say, "It's really nothing. I just came to visit a friend who works here." Liu King said again, "You have a friend who works here. How is your relationship with him? Do you need me to take care of him so that you can get a promotion and a raise in the future?" Su Weifeng hurriedly said, "He's not a particularly good friend, just an ordinary friend. It's just a private matter. In that case, your brother Liu won't get involved. Now you have my phone number. If you have any difficulties in the future, feel free to find me. Your brother Liu will definitely help if I can." After Su Weifeng came back from the army, he saw that most people were flatterers. There were few people as enthusiastic and cheerful as Liu King. Hearing this, he said, "Just for what brother Liu said, if you have any difficulties in the future, I will definitely help you." Haha, okay, although you can't help me with anything, this is very nice. Ha, I don't look down on you, I just say what I want to say. Liu King's family assets are now worth hundreds of millions, and he also believes that Su Weifeng is just an ordinary family. It's not that he looks down on Su Weifeng, but he does feel that Su Weifeng can't help him. Su Weifeng didn't explain, and smiled and said, "Brother Liu is still so straightforward." Liu King shook his head and said, "Don't mention it, just because of my mouth, I have offended many people. It's only because we grew up together when we were young that we don't mind." The two walked into the hall while talking. Several people who came over called him Director Liu. A capable woman who should be a secretary came over and said, "Hello, Mr. Liu. The two new major shareholders will be here soon. Please go to the conference room on the 8th floor and wait." Liu King nodded, then curled his lips, and said to Su Weifeng, "The major shareholder of our company has changed. I don't know what the new people are like. Alas, we have to flatter them." "No need to flatter them." Su Weifeng rubbed his nose subconsciously. "How can I not flatter them? They are major shareholders with a large share of the shares, and their words are final. We have to hope that they will give us more dividends at the end of the year, otherwise I won't have the money to go out and have fun." Su Weifeng chuckled and said, "I think I will give you more." "Ha, thank you for your good words, brother. Then I'll go upstairs. We'll call each other later." Seeing Liu King leave with the secretary, Su Weifeng couldn't help shaking his head. When Liu King saw him at the shareholders meeting, he really didn't know what kind of expression he would have. Chapter 396 I just don't believe it. Su Weifeng came to this company completely in the dark. He didn't know anyone, and didn't know where to go. The elevator door opened, and a group of men and women came out, and then hurried to the door. These people were well dressed, and it was obvious that they were not clerks of the company, but senior executives of the company. They walked directly past Su Weifeng without even looking at him. One person almost bumped into Su Weifeng and glared at him. They hurried to the door, probably waiting for someone. Not long after, Xu Lingling and a middle-aged man in his 40s walked in together. Those people immediately greeted Xu Lingling and the middle-aged man respectfully, and the smiles on their faces were really good. Su Weifeng couldn't help but laugh at himself. They were both major shareholders, but the treatment was really different. They walked a few steps inside, and Xu Lingling saw Su Weifeng. "Brother Su." Xu Lingling walked over quickly and came in front of Su Weifeng, showing a bright and sweet smile. The middle-aged man also hurriedly followed Xu Lingling. The other company executives were all a little confused at this time. Who is this young man? No one knows him. Today, Xu Lingling is wearing a professional suit and black high heels, but with her short hair, she really looks like a capable workplace executive. "Sorry to have kept you waiting for so long." Xu Lingling smiled apologetically and introduced the middle-aged man to Su Weifeng. "This is my sixth uncle Xu Dongqing. He now holds the Xu family shares in this company." "Hello, Mr. Su." Xu Dongqing hurriedly took the lead to greet Su Weifeng to show the Xu family's respect for Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, "You're welcome, Uncle Six." Xu Dongqing said humbly, "You're welcome, you're welcome. If I do anything wrong in the future, please correct me, Mr. Su." Su Weifeng smiled and said, "We'll take care of each other in the future. He and the Xu family are just partners, so there is no need for so much courtesy. Although the Xu family has helped him a lot, he has brought enough benefits to the Xu family, and he has the capital to make the Xu family treat him like this." Hearing Xu Lingling and Xu Dongqing address Su Weifeng, everyone immediately thought that this should be the second largest shareholder of the company. But what puzzled them all was that Xu Dongqing was obviously the largest shareholder, but his attitude towards Su Weifeng was so humble, as if Su Weifeng was the real major shareholder and the real chairman. Xu Dongqing did not introduce Su Weifeng to others, and directly entered the elevator with Su Weifeng and Xu Lingling, and then went up to the chairman's office on the 9th floor. After sitting down, the executives came to report one by one. In particular, the finance department gave a detailed report on the company's important assets. Su Weifeng knew that this was the Xu family's expression, so he pretended to listen carefully. He had no intention of participating in the management of these companies, and even if he took those shares, he didn't care. However, since they had such an attitude, he had to cooperate, otherwise it would be too disrespectful. At about 2:30, these reports were finally finished, and Su Weifeng could finally stretch his body. Xu Lingling chuckled and said, "Brother Su, why do I feel you are so helpless?" Su Weifeng moved his shoulders and said, "I just got some dry shares and I don't want to get involved in these things at all. Whatever you do, it's up to you." Xu Dongqing immediately gave a thumbs up and said, "Mr. Su is indeed open-minded, but as the chairman of the company, I must give Mr. Su an explanation. Please forgive me for the trouble." Xu Lingling looked at him with admiration and said, "Brother Su, so many people are sharpening their heads for money and interests, but only Brother Su, you regard money as dirt." Xu Dongqing nodded repeatedly and said, "Not bad, not bad. We can't even flatter you in this regard. This is the style of a big man." Su Weifeng hurriedly said, "Well, don't say that. I just don't have high material requirements, and I'm too lazy to care. I still have to make the money I should make, and I can't miss the dividends." Xu Lingling laughed and said, "Brother Su, you are so funny. I have to say that Xu Lingling is no longer so wild, and she has lost the style of a little sister. At this time, she still has the demeanor of a lady from a noble family. After all, she has received various excellent educations since she was a child. It was only because of marriage that she deliberately became a little sister. In fact, in essence, she is still a very motivated girl." The time is almost up. Xu Dongqing and Su Weifeng came to the 8th floor. Xu Lingling is not a shareholder, so she will not participate in this shareholders meeting. As soon as he got out of the elevator, an executive greeted Xu Dongqing and said that there was an important document to be signed immediately. Xu Dongqing had to let Su Weifeng go to the meeting room first, and he would arrive later. Liu King smoked. Although smoking is not prohibited in the meeting, who knows whether the new major shareholder likes to smoke. If he smells the smoke, he will have a bad impression of him, which is very bad. So Liu King hid in the stairs of the fire escape to smoke. After smoking a cigarette happily, Liu King walked out of the fire escape and saw Su Weifeng head on. Huh? Why did you run here? Liu King looked puzzled. Su Weifeng coughed dryly and said, I'm here to attend the shareholders meeting. Liu King rolled his eyes and said, PFFT, you really know how to find a place. This is really a meeting place. You are still like when you were a child. You are extremely curious about everything, and you won't give up until you figure it out. Are you sick again? Do you want to see what this shareholders meeting is all about? Su Weifeng was really at a loss whether to laugh or cry. Liu King would never believe that he was a shareholder, so he had to say helplessly, I'm here for the meeting. Liu King was a little angry and said, if you say that again, I'll be angry. Today's occasion is very important. I can't take you in. If you want to understand, let's have a drink later, and I'll tell you about it. Su Weifeng didn't know what to say for a moment. At this time, Xu Dongqing walked over after signing. Seeing Su Weifeng and Liu King standing together, he said in surprise, Mr. Su, do you know Liu King? Su Weifeng said helplessly, yes, we were childhood friends. Liu King was a little confused for a moment. What was going on? How did Su Weifeng know their chairman Xu Dongqing? Chapter 397. Are you really a major shareholder? Liu King, what's with that expression on your face? Xu Dongqing looked at Liu King in confusion. Liu King swallowed his saliva and said, Mr. Xu, Su Weifeng. Xu Dongqing said unhappily, Mr. Su is the second largest shareholder of our company. You wouldn't not even know this. You, this guy, really care about the company's affairs. Go. Liu King almost swore directly, staring at Su Weifeng with a dull look, then punched him and said, you, this guy, why didn't you tell me? You are too mean, aren't you? Su Weifeng said with a smile, I told you a long time ago that I'm here to hold a shareholders meeting, but you didn't believe it. This. Liu King rubbed his nose awkwardly and said, this is really hard for me to believe. I really didn't expect you to be so powerful. Xu Dongqing looked at Liu King again and saw that Su Weifeng and Liu King should have a good relationship. He would have to take better care of Liu King in the future. Should he bring him into the company and let him manage some specific business? The three of them entered the conference room. Xu Dongqing sat at the innermost end of the long round table, while Su Weifeng sat right next to him. There were name tags on the table. As soon as Su Weifeng came in, all the shareholders focused their attention on him. Xu Dongqing had been in the company for some time, but this was the first time that Su Weifeng, the second largest shareholder, showed up. Su Weifeng smiled at everyone and sat down directly. Xu Dongqing waited until Su Weifeng sat down before sitting down. Although this was just a subtle little move, everyone immediately focused their attention on Xu Dongqing's face. The reason was very simple. The chairman didn't sit down, at least he didn't let you sit first, but you sat down first, which was completely disrespectful to the chairman. This was either Su Weifeng who didn't understand the ways of the world, or he was flamboyant and didn't take Xu Dongqing, the chairman, seriously. Xu Dongqing was a member of the Xu family. Other shareholders subconsciously thought that Xu Dongqing's status was high enough, and Su Weifeng should be ignorant of the ways of the world. But after Xu Dongqing sat down, he did not show any dissatisfaction and smiled at Su Weifeng first. This made everyone a little puzzled. Xu Dongqing did not seem to be a person with a particularly good temper and did not give face to other shareholders. Now he had such an attitude towards Su Weifeng. Doesn't that mean Su Weifeng, the second largest shareholder, is not simple, and even Xu Dongqing can't afford to offend him? Everyone, let me introduce you to Mr. Su Weifeng, the second largest shareholder of our company. Welcome Mr. Su to our shareholders meeting. Now, please let Mr. Su say a few words. After speaking, Xu Dongqing was the first to applaud. Everyone was staring at Xu Dongqing. From his reaction, it was clear that he was not hypocritical at all, and he was very enthusiastic. These shareholders can own so many assets, which one is not a smart person? At this time, they immediately applauded enthusiastically. Liu King's mouth twitched secretly. Just now, he felt that Su Weifeng was very impressive to be the second largest shareholder. Now why do you feel that this Su Weifeng seems to be more impressive, even more impressive than the chairman Xu Dongqing? Su Weifeng just said a few polite words, and he got to know everyone. This shareholders meeting involves the future development of the company. What the Wei family did before was somewhat shady, and the Shu family didn't want to do too much of this kind of thing, so they wanted to adjust the direction of the company. Su Weifeng definitely supports this decision. Although some of the other shareholders are used to making money, they dare not raise any more objections due to the clear attitude of the two major shareholders. This shareholders meeting was also very smooth. After the shareholders meeting, Su Weifeng couldn't leave immediately. Other shareholders handed out business cards and came to chat with Su Weifeng. Everyone wanted to find out about Su Weifeng's background, but Su Weifeng just didn't want to socialize like this. After finally dealing with everyone, Su Weifeng looked at Liu King's hesitant look and smiled. Brother Liu, didn't you say you wanted to drink with me? It's better to do it today than to choose a day. How about today? Okay. Liu King was overjoyed and agreed immediately. The two walked out of the meeting room together. Liu King could feel the envious eyes of other shareholders. He felt really good. Sitting in Liu King's Mercedes-Benz, Liu King stared at Su Weifeng and said, Weifeng, you really surprised me. How did you become the major shareholder of our company? Su Weifeng chuckled and said, I became a shareholder without knowing why. There is nothing I can do about it. If it were in the past, Liu King would definitely ask for clarification when encountering such a strange thing, but now that he saw that Su Weifeng didn't want to say it, he really didn't dare to ask. He took the initiative to change the subject and said, let's find a good place today and have a good drink. Su Weifeng thought for a moment and said, is a barbecue restaurant at the entrance of our compound still there? When Liu King heard this, he was secretly happy. Su Weifeng was expressing nostalgia, and he was also a nostalgic person. He said, I haven't been back there for a long time. It's been demolished, so it's probably gone. But we can go and have a look. Maybe it's still open, just in a new place. Su Weifeng smiled and said, okay, let's go and look for it. What disappointed the two was that the family compound had long become a residential area, surrounded by shops. There were 2 barbecue restaurants, but they were not opened by the original owner. There happened to be a food stall nearby, which seemed very lively. The two hit it off and prepared to go there to eat. Liu King didn't think it was bad to eat in such a place. On the contrary, it could better reflect the good relationship between the two. There was no place to park there, so they parked the car quite far away and walked over. Liu King pointed to a restaurant and said, there are many people here, so it should be good. Su Weifeng also nodded and said, the more people there are, the better the taste should be. The two came to the food stall and found that not only were the seats full, but there were even several groups queuing at the door. Should we wait here or go to another restaurant? Liu King asked with a smile. Su Weifeng smiled and said, wait a while, I smell the barbecue here is delicious. It was completely unexpected that 2 billionaire bosses appeared in this food stall, so there was no special treatment at all. The two took a number and sat on a small stool at the door, chatting while waiting. However, after waiting for less than 2 minutes, the boss walked over quickly and said to the two, gentlemen, you have a seat. What does this mean? Liu King and Su Weifeng were a little puzzled. Is there anyone here who knows their identities? Chapter 398 Kissing Lin Zhuangsun. Boss, what do you mean? We are all queuing up. Why should they have a seat first? That's right. How can you do things like that? We have been queuing for more than half an hour. The groups that were waiting in front immediately shouted in dissatisfaction. The boss hurriedly said, ladies and gentlemen, it's really not me who squeezed them in, but the people over there took the initiative to give up their tables, and specifically said it was for these two gentlemen. While he was talking, several people walked out over there. Each of them was a big and strong man, and it was not easy to mess with them. The people who had raised opinions were silent in an instant. They could try to reason with them, but they knew that these people were unreasonable, so they dared not say anything. A big man walked up to Su Weifeng with a smile on his face and said, brother, we have made room for you. Su Weifeng's face turned black. This guy turned out to be Liu Bao. He just saw him last night and he met him again today. The other party's attitude was good enough, so Su Weifeng waved his hand and said, no, you guys can eat yours. But Wang Bao insisted, how can that be? How can you wait here, big brother, while we eat inside? Su Weifeng said, there are so many people queuing up. Let's go in. It will be meaningful for everyone. Any objections? Do you have any objections? Wang Bao glared at the group in front. Those people immediately lowered their heads, and no one dared to say anything. Su Weifeng's face was dark, and he glared and said, I'm a person with no quality like you. Get out of here. I'm willing to queue up. You can go wherever you want to eat. Wang Bao and those younger brothers looked at each other immediately. This was clearly flattery that hit the nail on the head. After hesitating for a while, Wang Bao and his men hurriedly left in disgrace. All the people in front and behind Su Weifeng subconsciously moved away from their position at this time. Even those who are mixed up in the society, call them big brothers, you can imagine how difficult it is to mess with these two guys in front of them. Su Weifeng was somewhat helpless. Liu Bao made him look like a gangster boss. Liu King widened his eyes and said, oh my god, you are so awesome. These guys are obviously gangsters. They even called you big brother. Are you a gangster? Su Weifeng rolled his eyes at Liu King and said, what kind of gangsters are you? I just gave them a lesson and scared them. Scared? Liu King's eyes widened even more and said, can you tell me about this? Anyway, Su Weifeng was bored waiting, so he simply told the story. Liu King gave Su Weifeng a thumbs up and said, great. You really didn't serve in vain as a soldier. You are so skilled. Finally, it was their turn. They ordered a lot of skewers and a big bucket of Dreg's beer. While eating and drinking, they talked about the past. There were so many interesting things in their childhood. The two of them were really excited to talk about it. Time passed quickly. Su Weifeng's cell phone rang. It was Lin Zhuangxuan calling. When are you going home? Lin Zhuangxuan's voice was very light. Su Weifeng said casually, I will be back later. I'm drinking with my friends outside. Lin Zhuangxuan said weakly, then can you come back earlier? I'm so scared. Su Weifeng said speechlessly, not really. Are you still scared today? Lin Zhuangxuan pleaded, I don't want to control you. I'm really scared. Weifeng, please come back earlier. Okay, then I will go back in a while. After Su Weifeng hung up the phone, Liu King smiled and said, what's the matter? Your girlfriend urged you to go home? Su Weifeng shook his head and said, I can't help it. I took her to see a horror movie yesterday and was scared to death. I have to go home now. Liu King smiled and said, haha, it's important to accompany your girlfriend. Anyway, we will have plenty of opportunities to drink in the future. Although he didn't enjoy himself today, Liu King was already very satisfied. This time when he went home and talked about this with the old man at home, the old man would definitely not say that he was useless. Half an hour later, Su Weifeng returned to his home. As soon as the door was pushed open, Lin Zhuangxuan rushed over, and she jumped up and threw herself on him. She hugged Su Weifeng's neck with her arms, wrapped her legs around Su Weifeng's waist, and buried her head on Su Weifeng's neck. Su Weifeng quickly caught her, held her legs, and said, this is too enthusiastic. I can't handle it. Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly bit Su Weifeng's shoulder. Hiss, it hurts. What are you doing? Are you a dog? Su Weifeng gritted his teeth, but did not throw Lin Zhuangxuan off. HMPH. Lin Zhuangxuan bit for a while, then let go, and said angrily, you knew I was scared at home, but you came back so late. Do you want to scare me to death? Su Weifeng smiled bitterly and said, I didn't expect you to be scared. HMPH. You just don't care about me. I'm angry. I'm sad. Lin Zhuangxuan said, turning her head away, but she didn't get off Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng really felt a little guilty. Looking at the delicate little face, so close to him, he leaned forward and kissed her face gently, saying, does this make you feel better? Lin Zhuangxuan was a little stunned. She turned her head to look at Su Weifeng directly, then pouted and said, too perfunctory. Su Weifeng's heart was moved, and he kissed Lin Zhuangxuan's mouth directly. HMM. Lin Zhuangxuan made a strange sound in her throat, and stared at Su Weifeng with wide eyes. After Su Weifeng kissed her, he felt a little regretful and uneasy. Just as he was about to separate, Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly hugged her head with both arms, and kissed her back hard. This kiss was really a kiss that went against the sky and the earth. In fact, the two of them had always had feelings for each other, but Su Weifeng had been restraining himself because of his responsibilities, and Lin Zhuangxuan could only fool around because of Qiao Yushan, and did not dare to do it for real. Now that it started, it was like a flood that broke through the dam, and no one could control it. Boom. The true energy in Su Weifeng's body started to circulate wildly again. That wonderful state of mind occurred again. Lin Zhuangxuan immediately felt that Su Weifeng had no response. She opened her eyes and looked at Su Weifeng, and she knew what was going on. Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly felt a strong sense of pride in her heart. This guy didn't have such a thing when he kissed Zhao Xiaoshu, but it happened when he kissed her, which was enough to show Su Weifeng's feelings for her. Although without Su Weifeng's response, this kiss inevitably lost a certain flavor, but the satisfaction in her heart was extremely strong, more intoxicating than the physical feeling. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 399 Tangled. It took more than half an hour before the wonderful state slowly faded away. Su Weifeng only felt that the true energy in his body was stronger, and the recovery of his strength was more obvious. This time was definitely comparable to the effect produced by Menkaking that time, and it was even stronger than that time. Lin Zhuangxuan then separated her lips from Su Weifeng with a sweet smile on her face and said, "Is it over?" "Yeah." Su Weifeng nodded. His eyes were also very gentle, and he said, "Zhuangxuan, thank you so much." "Then how should I thank you?" Lin Zhuangxuan blinked. "How to thank you? Then kiss again." Su Weifeng said, and kissed Lin Zhuangxuan again. The two can be said to be truly in love for the first time. This kind of sweet kiss is also enjoyable. They have been together for a long time before they separated. Bad guy, my lips hurt. They must be swollen. How can I go to work tomorrow? Lin Zhuangxuan's little fist gently hit Su Weifeng's chest. "I'll help you deal with it later, and it will definitely not be seen by others." "That's more like it." Lin Zhuangxuan almost hung on Su Weifeng's body and then returned to the bedroom. "I want to take a shower." Lin Zhuangxuan looked at Su Weifeng with a smile. "You won't let me accompany you again?" Su Weifeng's heart beat faster. Lin Zhuangxuan raised his chin and said, "Humph, I don't need you to accompany me today. If I'll let you accompany me, you will definitely do something more outrageous." Su Weifeng smiled awkwardly. He had to admit that, if it was still like yesterday, he would definitely not have such strong self-control. After breaking this layer of window paper, other things, when they developed, seemed to be very simple. The two took a shower separately and lay on the bed hugging each other. Lin Zhuangxuan's fingers drew circles on Su Weifeng's chest and whispered, "Weifeng, I'm a little worried." "What are you worried about?" Su Weifeng asked. "I'm worried that the two of us won't be able to control ourselves and end up in bed." "Aren't we in bed now?" Su Weifeng knew what Lin Zhuangxuan meant and pretended to be confused. Lin Zhuangxuan hit Su Weifeng, then sighed and said, "But I really feel sorry for my sister in my heart." Su Weifeng said, "Your sister and I are not really husband and wife. Not now, but what about in the future? I can feel that my sister has fallen in love with you. Although she is not good at expressing this, as her sister, I can still feel it." "This, no way." Su Weifeng didn't have the confidence to speak. She had experienced that wonderful state in Qiao Yushan, which explained the problem. Lin Zhuangxuan rolled her eyes at Su Weifeng and said with some resentment, "My sister has finally fallen in love. How can I snatch a man from her? I'm really conflicted right now." Su Weifeng took a deep breath and said, "Zhuangxuan, thank you for reminding me. I was too impulsive. I shouldn't have treated you like this." "Stop, you don't have to act responsible." Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly widened his eyes and said, "Even if you want to leave in the future and can't really be with me, then what happens between you and me is what I want, and you don't need to take any responsibility." Su Weifeng smiled bitterly and said, It's not this or that. I know you have the spirit of dedicating yourself to the country, but you can't just think about everyone and not your own family. You still have parents. You are their only son. You should at least leave a child, right? PFFT. This. Su Weifeng widened his eyes. His thought jump was a bit too big. Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly said faintly, I really thought about giving birth to a child for you. Su Weifeng looked at Lin Zhuangxuan and was suddenly moved beyond words. He hugged her tightly and said, Zhuangxuan, you are so good to me. Who made me like you? But I'm still very entangled about this matter. How about you and Qiao Yushan have a child? Su Weifeng hurriedly said, are you messing up a bit? You should understand that I still like you the most. Lin Zhuangxuan smiled sweetly and said, I like to hear you say this the most. Then she immediately shook her head and said, why think about these annoying things? Let's talk about the future later. Anyway, you are mine now. Let's talk about it when Qiao Yushan comes back. Su Weifeng also knew that this matter could not be solved now, and he could understand Lin Zhuangxuan's mentality. If he likes a woman, he naturally doesn't want Lin Zhuangxuan to bear too heavy a burden in her heart. In order to avoid the possibility of something that can't be saved, Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan were restraining themselves. There was no more intimate thing, and they just slept in each other's arms. If Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan were just like a couple before, then they were a real couple. After getting up in the morning, from time to time, they would make eye contact, or kiss lightly, or Lin Zhuangxuan would hug Su Weifeng from behind. It was not until Lin Zhuangxuan finished putting on makeup that she stopped doing so. The reason was that she had to put on makeup again. She had to go to work, and she had to pay attention to the image of the boss. There was a lot of work in the morning, so Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan didn't have any chance to get tired of each other. At noon, Su Weifeng came to the second floor of this office building. There is a fitness club here, which has various exercise equipment and a swimming pool. Recently, Su Weifeng has started to resume training. It is no longer suitable at home, so it is better to come here. Lin Zhuangxuan was not idle at noon either, and she had things to do, so she didn't come with him. A coach took Su Weifeng to various venues and persuaded him to apply for a gym card. After walking to a strength training room, Su Weifeng walked out. As soon as he walked to the door, he bumped into someone. Su Weifeng could have avoided such a thing, but he clearly felt that the other party did not have the slightest intention of stopping when facing him, so he did not dodge and secretly exerted a little strength. Ouch. With a woman's cry, a person was directly knocked out by Su Weifeng and fell heavily to the ground. Su Weifeng then looked at the person. This was a woman who looked to be in her 20s. She was wearing tight fitness clothes. Her face was really pretty, especially her eyes, which were very distinctive. Not only were they big, but they were also very bright. Especially now that they were wide open, they seemed to be spitting fire. In addition, her figure. Ahem. Su Weifeng had to admire it. This was really great. The tights seemed to be likely to be torn at any time. Chapter 400 Violent Woman. You don't have eyes when you walk. The woman jumped up and roared at Su Weifeng angrily. Su Weifeng narrowed his eyes. He couldn't help but tease this hot-tempered woman and said, we bumped into each other. Am I the only one who doesn't have eyes? The woman pointed to the wall at the corner of the door and said with gritted teeth, nonsense. I turned around. This is a blind spot. Can I see you? You can clearly see me. Why don't you avoid it? Su Weifeng sweated in his heart. It seemed to be true. He must have really misunderstood this woman just now. She didn't mean to target him. The woman rubbed her chest, but found that Su Weifeng's eyes followed her. She immediately said angrily, you bastard, you dare to take advantage of me on purpose. Believe it or not, I will dig out your eyes. Su Weifeng thought about it, and it seemed that he had bumped into that place just now. But who made the woman's place so protruding? This position is indeed the easiest to be bumped. He wanted to apologize, but seeing the woman's attitude, Su Weifeng really didn't want to apologize. He crossed his arms and said, you are too violent. Aren't you afraid that you won't be able to get married in the future? The woman got even angrier and shouted, whether I can get married or not is my business. Do you need to say it here? Boy, if you don't give me an explanation today, believe it or not, I will beat you to the ground right now. Su Weifeng curled his lips and said, I just bumped into you accidentally, and we bumped into each other. You actually want to beat me? I've seen unreasonable people, but I've never seen such an unreasonable woman like you. A man walked over quickly, with a muscular body, and said loudly, "Baoa, which bastard dares to make you angry? I'll teach him a lesson for you." Baoa. Su Weifeng burst out laughing. A woman with such a hot temper actually has such a cute name. The woman obviously understood what Su Weifeng was laughing at, and she became even angrier. She gritted her teeth and said, "Boy, I'm not done with you today." "Okay, what do you want?" Su Weifeng hugged his shoulders, looking lazy and unafraid of boiling water. The man waved his sturdy arm and yelled at Su Weifeng, "Boy, you are so pretentious. I'm here to beat you up for Baoa." The woman named Baoa was not grateful at all. She glared at the man and shouted, "Don't mind your own business. Go wherever you want." The man immediately put on a smile and said, "Baoa, am I not venting my anger for you? I will handle my own business. If you continue to cause trouble, I will beat you up too, boy." Feng Baoa pointed at Su Weifeng and shouted, "You bumped into me just now, and I can see that you are capable of some tricks. Let's meet on the ring." Su Weifeng raised the corner of his mouth and said jokingly, "On the ring? I thought you were going to beat me up here." Feng Baoa raised her eyebrows and said, "If I beat a scum like you here, I'm afraid you won't accept it. I'm going to beat you up in the ring today." "What? You don't dare?" Feng Baoa looked very fierce at this time, but she had a special kind of heroic demeanor. Su Weifeng deliberately shrank his neck and said, "You don't have to do that. I don't like hitting women." Feng Baoa immediately said angrily, "What a big tone. If you have the ability to beat me, then I will also respect you. I will not hold you responsible for the fact that you bumped into me and took advantage of me." The man who tried to please Feng Baoa curled his lips in disdain and said, "Boy, are you scared? If you are scared, then apologize to Baoa obediently, otherwise you will die ugly when you get on the ring." Su Weifeng looked at Feng Baoa in surprise. From what he said just now, he could see that Feng Baoa should be quite famous in this gym. Even this muscular man thought she was very powerful. "Don't be so fussy as a grown man. Hurry up." Feng Baoa had already glared at him impatiently. Su Weifeng showed a brilliant smile and said, "It sounds like a fun thing to fight with a beautiful woman. I will play with you reluctantly. Boy, I'll wait for you at the ring. You'd better not run away, otherwise you will never show up in this gym again." After saying that, Feng Baoa turned around and strode away. The man waved his fist at Su Weifeng provocatively and then followed Feng Baoa. The coach who led Su Weifeng smiled bitterly and said, "Sir, you should leave first today." "Oh." Su Weifeng smiled and said, "Can she eat me?" The coach said, "Feng Baoa is a celebrity here. She is very good at fighting. Although she is a woman, no man in our gym has ever beaten her. From time to time, there are newcomers who want to challenge Feng Baoa, but they are all beaten badly by her. The most important thing is, what else?" Su Weifeng was also aroused by strong curiosity. The coach grinned and said, "Feng Baoa doesn't bully others just because she is a good fighter, but she hates men who take advantage of women the most. Such a man would be in trouble if he got into the ring with her." Some time ago, a man was hospitalized for several days because of this reason, after being beaten by Feng Baoa. So violent? Su Weifeng found it even more interesting. "You bumped into her just now, and also bumped into her chest. She must think that you deliberately took advantage of her. If you get on the ring, she will definitely not show mercy, so I advise you to hide." Su Weifeng chuckled and said, "Such an interesting woman, then I will test her skills even more. Let's go. I will also buy a set of equipment." The coach said anxiously, Sir, don't show off. This is not a joke. If you get on the ring, she won't let you get off easily if you want." Su Weifeng chuckled and said, "It doesn't matter. If I can't beat her, the worst that can happen is that she will beat me up. It's romantic to die under the peony flowers and become a ghost." The coach rolled his eyes. He was just joking with good intentions, but Su Weifeng's obvious appearance of picking up girls made him too lazy to say anything. After changing his clothes, Su Weifeng, led by the coach, came to a hall. In the center of the hall, there was a standard boxing ring, and Feng Baoa was on the boxing ring. Many men and women who were doing fitness had gathered around, and they were obviously here to watch the fun. Standing on the boxing ring, Feng Baoa looked down from above and saw Su Weifeng at a glance. She pointed at Su Weifeng and said loudly, "Boy, I didn't expect you to dare to come." Su Weifeng laughed and said, To die under the peony flowers, even as a ghost, is still romantic. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.